Hello and welcome to World Today here on TVP World. My name is Ashim Kumar. Today on World Today, we delve into the intriguing connection between the Ukraine war and the so-called Global South. For example, Brazilian President Lula da Silva, various African leaders and even Indian PM Modi, in their efforts to bring peace to Eastern Europe, have engaged in active non-alignment meeting with key global leaders involved in the conflict. This approach allows countries to focus on their own interests without taking sides in conflicts between great powers, as the world witnesses a budding second Cold War between the United States and China. Active non-alignment gains importance, driven by the growing economic power of developing nations. Join us as we explore the implications and impact of this dynamic on the global stage with Estefania Melendez, former ambassador of the Venezuelan interim government to Bulgaria and the Western Balkans, and Joshua Meserve, senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Hello, Joshua and Estefania. Welcome to you both. Before we get kicked off, there is a short soundbite that I'd like to share with you and our audience, and I'll come back and get your opinions on that.
How is Brazil connected to the war in Ukraine? At first glance, the connection may seem tenuous. However, in the first 6 months of his presidency, the country's president has devoted significant efforts to facilitate peace in the Eastern European conflict. These efforts include discussions with US President Joe Biden in Washington, Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, a teleconference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and a meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Brazil. By adopting this position, Brazil is actively pursuing a policy of non-alignment, wherein countries from the Global South, Africa, Asia and Latin America refrain from taking sides in conflicts between major powers and instead focus solely on their own interests. While many of these nations have voted in the United Nations General Assembly to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with over 140 member states consistently doing so, they are reluctant to escalate what they perceive as a European conflict into a global one. Regarding the Ukraine war, Brazil's non-alignment mission does not support either Russia or NATO. Additionally, Brazil is not the only country in the Global South taking this position, although it was the first to attempt brokering a peace agreement. In an effort to facilitate an end to the war, a delegation of several African leaders engaged in talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky followed up with a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The African delegation presented a 10-point plan for de-escalation. The visit, however, has not changed the entrenched position of Ukraine and Russia. Moscow insists on Ukrainian acceptance of Russian sovereignty over the occupied lands and the scraping of Kyiv's plans to join NATO, both of which Kyiv is not keen on meeting.
Estefania, I'll start with you if I may. We've heard of non-alignment. What's this? What does active non-alignment mean? What's the difference?
Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. So we have been observing this behavior of the countries such as Brazil. The President Lula da Silva has been engaging with this conflict, but trying also from this perspective on the non-alignment. And it has been this so-called behavior of active non-alignment, which is not be seen like a neutral position very much. And it has been trying to engage very much with the position, for example, of China peace deal, and trying to promote this plan for peace in the conflict in Ukraine. But it seems that it's not going very well. We have seen President Lula meeting with a very important leader, as you just said in your introduction. But we have also seen some declaration from President Lula when he actually, even when he tried to convince that he doesn't want to take a side in the conflict, he has been blaming the West and NATO for what is going on in Ukraine. And this exactly behavior we have seen also with the Venezuelan conflict, when he said that, for example, this is a matter of narrative. So we have seen that this active alignment, how it's so called in your questions, it is more aligned to the interest in this moment of Russia and China. We need to understand also that these countries, let's say development countries, they want to be in good terms with Washington or Beijing, but we have seen that they also have a lot of dependence on China, and this make, let's say, their position to be very difficult, not to be neutral at all, and it's what we are observing.
Yes, well, thank you for laying that out for us, Estefania. Joshua, is it realistic in today's interconnected world for countries to be non-aligned, surely, with the great power struggles that we're seeing develop now, China and the US, of course, primarily, but of course Russia and Europe are also in the mix. Surely it's not possible to be non-aligned. You have to take one side or the other in the final outcome, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's very difficult, to your point, in an interconnected world like the one we live in, to be truly non-aligned. And I hesitate about that phrase because frequently it's used by countries that in their actions are not particularly non-aligned. So take, for example, South Africa, whose president was part of this mission, this peace mission to Ukraine and to Russia. The South Africans may well have shipped weapons to Russia. The U.S. has accused publicly Pretoria of doing that. Egypt was also part of this peace mission. There are reports that it may have tried to secretly ship rockets and other weapons also to Russia. So they were both part of this peace mission. They both claim to be non-aligned. So I think sometimes this non-aligned rhetoric is more of a facade, and it is an attempt by countries to play both sides and to still have their favorites, but also try to convince the other side that actually, in fact, they're not playing favorites. So I'm really hesitant about this non-aligned rhetoric.
Yes, so non-alignment is simply rhetoric, Joshua says, Estefania, and at the end of the day, you know, countries will perhaps behave one way and say something different. However, many would argue that India has actually played the non-aligned game quite well since the end of the Second World War and during the Cold War, where they had very good relationships with both the West and the East. Estefania, would you agree?
Well, India has a very specific position on this. I think there is also a lot of work from Ukraine on this side. It's a very important support to receive. I believe the Prime Minister of India will play a very important role, as also being a part of BRICS will play a very important role on these non-aligned countries, where Brazil is in there and also South Africa. And well, we will have to see very well how things develop. I believe that the role of India, it is very important in this conflict in the favor of Ukraine.
Yes, okay, well, I definitely want to come back to that point, and also I want to ask you about South America as a continent and the various countries within it and their relationship to the conflict. But before I do that, Joshua, what do you make of Prime Minister Modi's visit to America? What was behind it, and what do you think the two leaders want out of it?
Well, I think it was an important visit. The United States views India as a linchpin, frankly, of its efforts to try to ameliorate the negative behavior of China in places like the Pacific Ocean and even the Indian Ocean, but mostly the Pacific. India is the world's largest democracy, so it has a lot of sort of values in that sense in common with the United States. It is a rising power. So the U.S. really sees it as a potential counterweight to the rising power of Beijing. which the U.S. views very negatively in East Asia and beyond. So I think it's part of this process that the United States is going through of trying to cement closer and closer ties with India, and of course India does have deep relations with China, despite all of the border problems and everything else that they have. They're still very connected economically and in other ways, and it's also very connected to the United States as well. So it is trying to derive benefits from both those relationships. I think it does have security concerns about Beijing, and so it wants to maintain a certain tightness, a certain closeness with the United States in case those security relationships with Beijing deteriorate further.
You say that it does have connections. India does have many connections to China, but it is being excluded largely from the Belt and Road Initiative. Chinese support for Pakistan, which is also a sworn enemy of India's, is increasing, and so on. So could it be that India is reaching out to the United States on the, enemy of my enemy is my friend basis?
Yes, absolutely. I think this goes back to the very beginning of our discussion, actually. The world is interconnected, so even competitors have very strong connections to each other. The United States and China are in a very negative place regarding their relationship.
You're very quiet because you're at work. How's the work going?
And other economic type of interactions.
I've survived a whole week. Wait.
As well. So the same is true of
update my
India
counter.
And China. Now you're absolutely right. Those two are profound competitors. They have the border problems. You mentioned China's very strong relationship with Pakistan, which of course has its own deep problems with India.
One day later, Russia needs to be denazified. They're
this
bad,
is the
bad
reality, sort of the messy reality, I would say.
1 month later, no more Estonians left. To be
new
fair,
world that we live in, and that's what makes
I think
idea
Estonia
of a new Cold War. I think it's useful in some ways, but this
would be
this
one of
new
the
era
last countries to go
competition, great power
neutral.
competition that we're in is very different from the old Cold War in some ways.
There would
because
need
of this
to be some sort of
interconnectedness that we've been talking about. Because
sabotage
of
for
the
them to
global
say something like
reality
that.
Of supply chains and communications.
Whose
and
bicycle
such.
wheel?
So this untangling all that.
You're trying to sabotage someone?
I do think there's an obvious.
Did someone park outside of your store?
India
trying
and
to
the
fuck
United
them up
States
now?
because of their shared concerns about Chinese activity in places like the Pacific and the Indian Ocean and even further afield.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. Stefania, lay out for us, please, the relationship between the South American countries and the conflict that's occurring right now in Ukraine.
This is a really good.
Well, for South American countries.
This is a really good crowd video on this. Really, really, really good crowd video on neutrality. Oh, Bosnia. Neutrality. Let me show you this one. You know how good this video is?
This video is about neutral countries in Europe, how recent events.
It's great. It goes through neutrality of all the countries. And then basically, where's the part? There's one part of this, which is like, well, what I've seen now is that if I stay neutral, no one's really going to take care of me if I get attacked. So maybe I shouldn't be neutral.
49, and simply assumed that nobody will ever invade it anyway. A bold strategy, you may say, but so far it has actually worked. In Europe, since the end of the Cold War, many European neutral countries have cut down their defense spending, and for them, this war is a considerable wake-up call, in particular for one country, Ireland. Because Ireland is a bit of an exception, kind of like Costa Rica, because Ireland also barely ever invested in defense before. Before this war broke out, the Russian Air Force sometimes simulated nuclear attacks on Ireland, but the Irish usually just dismissed this as a Russian macho stupidity or joked about it. But a mere months before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ireland had scuffles with the Russian Navy mucking about in her territorial waters. This is a huge threat to Ireland. If Russia were to, for example, cut Ireland's underwater internet cable infrastructure, there's little to nothing Ireland could do about it, while it would wreck almost the entire Irish economy overnight. The Irish also realized that they have little to nothing to confront a Russian nuclear bomber. Right now, and this may surprise you, Ireland barely even has an air force or air defense. If a Russian nuclear bomber or navy vessel were heading for Ireland, the Irish could literally do nothing but beg the English to help them. Let's be clear about one thing. Ireland will not give up its neutrality. Neutrality is at this point a core part of Irish national and political identity. But I do believe that the Irish will now invest considerably more in defense, and that in terms of how the war in Ukraine impacts neutral European states, I believe it will have the biggest impact on Ireland. In the coming years, we will probably see the Irish discuss their defense more, especially how they can protect their territorial waters and airspace. Predictions are a fickle thing to make, but I would not be surprised if the Irish will be going to Sweden in the coming years to buy a fleet of Gripens to guard their seas and airspace. Of course, alternatively, Ireland could do deeper defense cooperation with Britain, but doing that would open the door to potentially ending neutrality in general, which is why I do not think the Irish will do that. And really, the only thing Ireland would need to defend itself is an air force and anti-ship missiles. The reason why I called Ireland somewhat special is that among European neutral countries, Ireland has always been somewhat of an odd one out. Not just because
Basically,
Ireland has
cool
always
thing.
lagged behind in defense.
Yo.
Neutrality means you will have to stand alone in the case of war. And because of that
Hey,
fact,
this one.
neutral countries always heavily invest in having their own domestic defense industries. Look at any neutral country in Europe, and you will see that they all have massive defense
I got some
industries.
linkies.
This
I
may
got some
strike
videos.
viewers as
I also
weird
have a
because
new
there is
account,
false and
new YouTube account we
unfortunately
need to
very
check out.
popular notion, especially among Americans, that neutrality means pacifism and demilitarization. And that is just untrue. Neutrality usually means that you are armed to the teeth so you can guarantee your neutrality. And because you are alone, it means you have to be able to make your own weapons. And Ireland was for decades the only neutral country in Europe that had and still has no noteworthy defense industries whatsoever. I'm pretty sure this will change in the coming decade. I'm convinced that Ireland will not give up its neutrality, but it will provide subsidies and tax incentives for the creation of a domestic defense industry. If we move on from Ireland, we also saw another side of neutrality throughout the last year. At this point, I would like to go back to revisit a historic moment from the 1990s. On the 7th of May 1995, the Swiss president Caspar Villiger, during a special session
I
of the
wanna
Swiss
see the
Parliament,
part on, like-
apologized on behalf of the Swiss state and peoples to the victims of the Second World War. Well, you may ask, why did the Swiss do that? During the Second World War, Switzerland was neutral. and was
Basically,
not
you get
part
to the
within
point
the
of the
conflict.
video. There was
Well,
one really,
Switzerland
really good part of the
refused to
video. I don't
grant
know which one
entry
it
to
is.
fleeing Jews, and Switzerland
Oh,
continued.
was it actually at the start?
But yes, technically, on paper, Ukraine was neutral. In its 1991 Declaration of Independence, her
Was it
lawmakers
this one?
declared their intention to construct a neutral state. And that neutrality was also written into the Ukrainian constitution in 19 gave up its Soviet-inherited nuclear weapons and got guarantees on sovereignty from Russia and the United States. Russia violated that agreement in 2014, and Ukraine consequently dropped its neutrality. And Ukraine has spent the years since trying to find either a new partnership with the West or get guarantees from Russia that it will finally respect its sovereignty. And what happened to Ukraine forced the remaining neutral European countries to face a very uncomfortable question. Namely, what good did neutrality do for Ukraine? Because a fact we can all currently observe is that Ukraine's neutrality did not guarantee her peace. The opposite. Ukrainian neutrality made Ukraine more vulnerable. And neutral Europe is also forced to confront another very uncomfortable fact. That being that neutrality, ultimately, means that if you are attacked, you will stand alone. Yes, many states are sending military aid to Ukraine, but no soldiers. Ukraine will fight this alone. Ukrainians will have to win this alone. All that states who support Ukraine can do is attempt to alleviate the Ukrainian suffering by sending them weapons superior to Russian weapons, share intelligence on Russia, provide military training and logistics, sheltering Ukrainian refugees, putting pressure onto Russia, and guaranteeing Ukraine NATO membership after this war to guarantee she will no longer be alone. Confronting this has been especially impactful.
It's such a sad part of it for me, like, damn, yeah. Really though, really. Prigozhin, yeah, I have Prigozhin saved here. And also I opened the debate, where is it? I opened the debate right here, but it just ended, which is probably good because we can like scroll to parts we like. It was still going on when I opened it. I don't know what are the takes he gives, but I don't really trust him. So I don't think his takes are good.
That's
as a result.
Hey man, I don't know.
So that's kind of, you know, what I'm expecting out of this. His takes are probably shit. I don't have too much trust in the Beanie Man. I don't think he has good opinions. On average, I think he is able to choose his opponents well in these debates. And therefore, in some videos, he seems reasonable, but also I don't really think, you know, I don't really think he is the smartest man when it comes to a lot of these things. So I'm kind of hyped about finding out where the fuck Ukraine part is and then figuring out what they are talking about, because I would love to hear his takes. I don't really trust they're going to be too good, but I would love to hear his takes. But Prigozhin was here. Prigozhin listed reasons for the start of the special military operation. So he claims it was personal ambitions of Shoigu and the desire of Russia's ruling clan, who were not satisfied with Donbass, to appoint Medvedchuk as president of Ukraine. So yeah, heard it from Prigozhin himself.
Война нужна была для того, чтобы кучка тварей просто поторжествовала и попиарилась, показав, какая она сильная армия. Чтобы Шойгу получил маршала, и этот указ уже был готов, и получил вторую звезду героя, потому что ему очень хотелось войти в историю как великий тувинский военачальник, который стал
they had a COVID vaccine talk. Kind of want to see that too.
фактически в мирное время.
How bad was that
Война
one?
была нужна не для того, чтобы вернуть в наше лоно российских граждан, и не для того, чтобы демилитаризировать и денацифицировать Украину. Она была нужна ради одной звезды с дополнительной вышивкой по периметру, чтобы один человек, психически больной, когда ляжет в гроб, чтобы на подушке принесли эту звезду. Это первое. А второе, война нужна была олигархам. Она нужна была тому клану, который сегодня фактически управляет Россией. Этот олигархический клан, он получает все, что возможно. Если у этого клана закрываются зарубежные бизнесы, то государство тут же делит внутренние бизнесы и передает их ему. Поэтому сажают бизнесменов, закрываются банки для того, чтобы клан не терял объемы своих денег. Деньги им не нужны. Они уже давным-давно сделали для себя все. Клиники, в которых специальные аппараты, чтобы, не дай бог, он раком заболеет, и все остальное, чтобы прожить как можно дольше. Это олигархическая верхушка, она думает только об одном. Как проволочить свое тело как можно дольше.
Wagner guy, I don't know if he's
Это их заболевание мозга. Они не думают
how to
ни
say
о стране,
this. I don't
ни о
know
людях,
he's
ни о войне,
aware
ни
that
о
he
чем,
has no
кроме себя.
chance
Так
to
вот,
win.
Вторая
So it
важнейшая
might
задача
be.
операции
It might be.
это назначение неким
Like I'm
президентом
not sure
Украины
he's really
Медведчука.
Grisha. Oh shit, Grisha is like,
Того самого Медведчука,
do I listen to
который
this
уже
daddy
заранее
or the
пробрался
other
в
one?
Киев, сидел и ждал, когда придут войска, Зеленский убежит,
So important
все сложат
oligarch.
оружие, и он станет президента
Part of
Украины.
me still wants to be like them.
Задача
Is this
была в
like
материальных
psyop?
активах, которые необходимо будет поделить после того, как они возьмут ее под контроль. И неплохо было бы наказать режим Зеленского, неплохо было бы наказать американцев за то, что они сделали госпереворот в 2014 году на Украине. Но для этого было много
Secret the
времени.
CIA, yeah, him
Которое
and
было
Putin both.
Упущено, я вернусь, коли мы сейчас про
They're both
материальные
trying to
ценности
destroy Ukraine
разговариваем, про финансовые
and
средства.
Russia.
Потому что воровали на Донбассе пачками. Но захотелось больше.
No, I think they just wanna fuck
Решили
everything up.
поставить
That's it.
Медведчука.
We
Медведчук
could
арестован.
fall for the the theory that like USA wants to destroy,
Ведь Азов это основа националистических.
weaken as many countries as much as possible, so it would be able to rule over them. You can fall for that
Почему
conspiracy.
мы его поменяли? Почему он нам так дорог? Почему мы не отдали его, чтобы его расстреляли? И самый главный вопрос, почему мы не поменяли на
Based
пленных
question, да.
бойцов? Почему мы не поменяли Азов на солдат, а поменяли на эту падаль, на Медведчука, у которого все, что есть, это хорошие дружеские отношения, скажем так, в руководстве страны.
Waiting for Prigozhin
После
to
того,
get
как
blown
взяли
up.
Херсонскую и Запорожскую область, первое, что
I actually
произошло,
wonder if that
оттуда
happens. I
начали
wonder who would be
массово
blamed.
вытаскивать бульдозеры, металл и так далее. Когда мы взяли Попасную
Like, I wonder who would be
и поставили
blamed.
охранение на заводах, ну если эти заводы
Would it be
не взяли,
Putin?
ну,
Would it be
не
would it be
разрушили, ну, почему бы им
Ukrainians?
не работать? Туда пришли люди, начали снимать оборудование и вывозить в сторону России. Артемовский завод шампанских и вин, который нам удалось сохранить, ну просто потому что так случайно получилось. Когда брали эти шахты, было там небольшие перестрелки, и украинские подразделения просто убежали от страха, о том, что будут уничтожены. Артемовский завод шампанских вин, мы из него взяли 10-15 бутылок на сувениры.
What?
И отправили 2 машины украинским женщинам. Все остальное лежало на месте. Сегодня уже принимаются решения, когда он будет запущен.
What is he talking about?
А с какого хрена он будет запущен? Кому он будет принадлежать?
Oh, this is those conspiracy about Russian oligarchs
100%
restarting
не народ
businesses.
Донбасса.
Okay.
100% тут же найдется хозяин, который будет пилить эти бабки. И
I want to now figure out what he is talking about. You know what he is talking about? You know that article we read about how Russians they take over parts of Ukraine and then they take over factories in Ukraine and write them under their own name as like a foreign factory that they have, and then they just kind of like fuck it up. They do as much corruption with that factory as possible. They sell everything the factory ever had. They just like get as much profit out of it as possible, and then when they are chased out of the area, they just kind of leave it destroyed. I guess that's what he is talking about here too. For some medium countries to be economically dependent on each other by forming a virtual overcountry, which is almost a federation, so that they may compare to larger countries. This situation makes the countries under this forced pseudo-federation become more hostile against each other. Among the larger countries, keep the facade of peace until the economies degenerate so much that war will happen anyways, then cry for peacekeeping when it actually happens. Smaller countries around these large and medium countries may be allowed quiet times because of their sizes. Maybe wait, which real life part of history would you connect this to? Like which situation from history are you referring to? Free entry to NATO for Armenia if they kill Prigozhin? Based. No, not anything. I want to hear a specific one. I want to know like specifically which specific one. Because so far like it reminds me of 2 different ones. But I wonder about who you ascribe to be the... How would I say this? Valid actors in the game. I wonder who you would do that. A Munich betrayal? Oh, I don't know if I would see that. Oh, that was not one of the options that I was thinking about. Adamon was just appeasing the aggressor though, wasn't it? I don't know if they created like a virtual of a country, federation, out of these. Relatively safe from defenestration due to his status as someone who is counterbalanced to the Russian army. Yeah, for me that's also interesting. Because if he gets killed, that would mean that likely Russia did it. Wait, you say Europe is pseudo-federation, but your message was force some medium countries to be economically dependent on each other by forming a virtual of a country which is almost a federation, so that they may compare to larger countries. Are you saying that the virtual of a country which is almost a federation is Europe? Like, I'm failing to see this on a practical. I thought you would be referring to either Yugoslavia or USSR, but in both of those it would be rather weird. In both of those, it would not make sense unless you were coming at this from a very USA-centered perspective, very strongly USA-based perspective. Just like, think of those people who like believe that USA is like the one sole part of the universe everything revolves around. I feel like that's the amount of delusion you would need to have to believe that either of these were forced into like some sort of a federation. I don't know what else do you see as like a pseudo-federation. Europe is a continent. America, what do you mean pseudo-federation of America? Who forced American states to like stay together? Who do you think forced them to form a federation? Who do you think forced Russian countries to stay together? Yeah, but like you said, they were forced into it. By what? By whom? That's what happens, which has been stupid, is what a stupid person would believe would bring peace. It's like, it seems like a very broad thing to say, in my view. It seems like a very, very, very broad thing to say, in my view. It's like one of those things that you would say, and then you would look at the world and you would be like, yeah, I don't know, I guess kind of broadly. Yeah. Good luck getting Turkey and Armenia in the same alliance. Because wait, the force would be referring to what? The natural laws? Like by the laws of how we do politics. Medium countries are forced to be economically dependent on each other by forming a virtual country, which is almost a federation, so that they may compare to larger countries. This situation makes the countries under this forced pseudo-federation become more hostile against each other. I'm not sure even that, like then I'm not seeing that one. Among the larger countries keep a facade of peace until the economies degenerate so much that war will happen anyways. Then cry for peacekeeping when it actually happens. Smaller countries around these large and medium countries may be allowed quiet times because of their sizes, maybe not. Still doesn't... Wait, doesn't make what a good choice? Joining countries into a federation? European Union is voluntarily based? True. True. European Union, best part of the universe. By the way, I saved this video that I need to show you. It's made by Spaghetti Kozak, and it's his video on the dumbest arguments about Russia's war on Ukraine, and he tried to publish it for like a week. So for a week I was trying to show you this video, but he kept unpublishing it because basically YouTube is not giving him ad revenue. So this was the point where he went, fuck it, and he just published it. Is it a good one? Because I haven't seen it, I was waiting. And then I just saved it for the stream. I didn't want to watch it off stream. I watch like his content regularly. I think he's really, really good. I saved that, and you know what else I saved? Let me show you. These are all the accounts you know, but this one, I found this person yesterday. Someone recommended him to me. And then I was like, and I kind of like saved him to see what he's all about. So he did a video on people who left Russia and how their experiences are being shown in Russian medias, and then they're also in like media overall. So I'm kind of interested in that. But I don't really know who that is, to be completely honest. I'm not sure I know who this man is. So I'm kind of going blindly into this one. Wait, where was I on this one though? Here. Manga? I don't know. If I've had it, like, ever in its proper form. Now that I think about it, I don't know if I ever had it in my proper form, in its proper form. I think I only had it in, like, additives. What? Who is David Zimansky? Magically causing a submarine to go missing to sell more copies of Airlines. Hey, have you guys seen the thing about the submarine though? Shit, they're doing interviews with families and it's just heartbreaking to follow. It's fucking heartbreaking to follow. Oldest federation? Hey! Do you? I mean, technically, do you? I guess? Do you? It is the oldest federation? Really? Really? But like, I can't see a history of federations. Oh, yeah, I was thinking of, I was in my mind, I was like, what about like, aren't empires technically? Technically, but I guess not, De facto federations? European Union is a federation. Ooh. Contemporary? 27 federations in the world. Ish. Bosnia. Oh shit, yeah. USA based. Whoa. But by the way, yeah, talking about the submarine, have you seen the interview? Who did the interview? Let me show you. I can't remember the dude's name. Here he is, James Cameron. I was thinking about James Cameron. Oh shit, I found one source of the video and I don't want to show you that one. Did you know the man is like really into deep diving? Really into that. Like he actually went on oh, here it is. Imagine dying and then James Cameron goes on national TV to say skill issue. But apparently, like, I'll just play it to you.
I've been down there many times. I know the wreck site very well, as does my friend Bob Ballard. I've made 33 dives. I actually calculated that I've spent more time on the ship than the captain did back in the day.
Bro.
And of course, you know, as a submersible designer myself, I designed and built a sub to go to the deepest place in the ocean, 3 times deeper than Titanic. So I understand the engineering problems associated with
like, did you know this
type of vehicle and all the safety protocols that you have to go through. And I think
this is James Cameron talking about that guy.
As I was watching, is absolutely critical for people to really get the take-home message from this, from our effort here, is deep submergence diving is a mature art. From the early 60s, where there were, you know, a few accidents, nobody was killed in the deep submergence, until now, is more time than between Kitty Hawk and the flight of the first 747. So if we haven't improved over that period of time, we have improved drastically over that period of time, and the certification protocols that all other deep submergence vehicles, except this one, that carry passengers, especially paying passengers, all over the world in tropical waters, deep coral reefs, other wreck sites,
33
and so on.
dives to the record site, my
The
dude.
safety record is the gold standard, absolutely. Not only no fatalities, but no major incidents requiring all of these assets to converge to a site. Of course, that's the nightmare that we've all lived with, you know, since all of us entered this field of deep exploration. We live with it in the back of our minds. But because implosion, as Bob described it, such a violent event, is first and foremost in our minds, the pressure boundary, which is what they call
Why was it
the hull of the
bolted?
sub that the people go inside,
Are they usually
is
bolted
obviously
shut
first
from the
and
outside?
foremost in our minds as engineers. And we spend so much time and energy on that. And we use all the computerized tools available today, finite element analysis.
Why would they
we
do
worked
that?
on our sphere for our deep vehicle that went to
What
the
was the
Challenger
reason for
Deep
that?
for over 3 years, just in the
Why would
computer.
you do that?
Before we even made the thing. And then,
Bro.
of course, we pressure tested it over and over and over.
No, like when you mentioned
and
it,
so
I
on.
thought, okay, yeah, like
So,
maybe this is some deep
you know,
diving
this is
shit,
a
I don't know
mature
about.
art,
I'm not
and
too much about
many
deep diving,
people
my man,
in
I'm
the
scared of it.
community were very concerned about this sub, and a number of
Easier than just getting a
you
door.
know, of the
Holy
top players
shit.
in the deep submergence engineering community even wrote letters to the company saying that what they were doing was too experimental to carry passengers and that needed to be certified and so on. So I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and yet he steamed at full speed into an ice field on a moonless night, and many people died as a
I'm
result.
scared of
And for a
Subnautica.
very similar tragedy where warnings went
Scary game,
unheeded
scary game.
to take place at the same exact site, with all the diving that's going on all around the world, I think it's just astonishing. It's really quite surreal. And of course, P.H. Nargelet, the French legendary submersible dive pilot, a friend of mine. You know, it's a very small community. I've known P.H. for 25 years. For him to have died tragically in this way is almost impossible for me to process.
I can imagine that. I can imagine that. Just heartbreaking. Man was an expert. Man was apparently like one of the leading experts in this. Anna. Like going there in the first place. I don't know. And I don't know. Dumbest thing ever. I also love that comment, like James Cameron has 3 movies in the top 4 of all time when it comes to box office. I love how many people were making jokes about like James Cameron basically using his the business of making movies to fund his deep sea diving passion. There's something so wholesome about that. Like, oh, here's the rich person, and he actually has a very cool interest, and he's using this very cool interest as a way to kind of inspire him in his career. I don't know. It's wholesome. You see someone very rich, and you're like, damn, that's a human. News claimed they were experts, but was utter bullshit on how that sub was built. Yeah, that too. That too. I don't know, I'm fucking heartbroken. There was a kid there, like the 19-year-old. I'm fucking heartbroken by the kid. It's all incredibly sad. All of this is just incredibly fucking sad. And then also, like, I'm seeing the fucking reactions online, and it makes me even more sad. There's a certain type of stupidity in this. There's a certain type of like, you guys know how exhausting it is when we're having conversations about like European events, when we talk about, for example, events in Ukraine specifically, and then you get someone in chat being like, oh, well, you care enough to talk about this, but not about another tragedy that has happened, and then the person doesn't care about the other tragedy themselves. It's like they bring up Syrian casualties, and then you're like, yeah, okay, let's have a conversation about these, and then they don't know a single thing, and it's because they're basically using these other tragedies just to kind of, you know, just as a gotcha point. They don't really give a shit. there's been a lot of that with the submarine, because people are pointing out that like, oh, so many news are posting about the submarine, but they're not posting about like the refugee ship that you know, has also caused a lot of people to die very recently. And it's like, I don't know, it's already a tragedy, and then you see another tragedy being used to piss on the graves of this one, but the person doesn't really care about anything. He's just playing around, cosplaying someone with moral virtues, and it's just, no. Like me right now complaining to my friends. I am, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. That's basically what I'm doing. I just want to complain. I hate it. I hate when I see it, I hate it that like people will come here and they'll be like, oh, don't you care about casualties in Syria? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go talk about casualties in Syria. Like, are you aware of how many casualties that were caused by fucking Russians? Are you aware why Surovikin was praised in Russia? Are you aware why they were happy when he became the leader of the troops in Ukraine? Are you aware that Ukrainian and Syrian victims, families and victims themselves who have managed to survive, are both trying to get Russians to court to answer for their crimes? Are you aware of this? And they're not, because they don't give a single shit. They don't care about Syrian casualties in the very much same way that when they talk about, oh, you support NATO? Well, what do you think about NATO bombing Yugoslavia out of existence? They don't give a shit about Yugoslavia. They don't give a shit about Serbia. They don't give a shit about any of this. They're just using them as a gotcha point. And it's just so exhausting. It's so exhausting to watch. Leave the dick measuring contest to the Marines. Holy shit. Oh, this is just like, fucking killing me. Yeah, the kid didn't even want to go. The kid didn't want to go, but he went because it was Father's Day weekend and he wanted his father to be happy. So yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just fucking heartbroken. Why is this though? Everything good in the world? In Russia, civil war? Heck yeah. Serbia after NATO didn't allow them to massacre civilians? Heck yeah, my man, heck yeah. And even then, like, they will bring up, like, NATO bombing Serbia and the civilian casualties that happened as a result of that bombing. And then you go, are you aware how many of these casualties happened because Serbs knew NATO is going to be bombing military posts, and Serbs knowingly placed Albanian civilians there? Like, are you aware? Do you not know? What was the specific? There's like a specific site in which the civilian casualties, was specifically Albanians that Serbs have placed there. Like, bro, come on. And then you get these dumbasses like mentioning civilian casualties, and you're like, okay, let's talk about civilian casualties. Sure, let's talk about them. And then they don't know a single shit. You know what else it reminds me of? It was also a Twitter thing, though, but when that girl in USA was missing, do you remember that case? That was a huge case on Twitter for a while. There was this girl from USA, and her boyfriend was sus. And she went missing. She was like a YouTube influencer or something. I don't know what she was. But basically she went missing, and the police was trying to figure out her location, right? And I remember so many people at the time were posting about... oh, everyone cares about this woman going missing because she's white, and they only care about white women. But there's always a lot of Native American women who go missing regularly, and no one really gives a shit about them. And I remember this one specific time, like there was one account which did like I don't want to say debunk of this, but what they basically did is they were like, okay, these are all of my posts that I've made in last few months. And then you had the posts on like Native American women going missing, and Twitter was doing nothing. Like Twitter users don't even care about these. They just kind of, sometimes they give them a like or whatever, sometimes they share them a little bit, and they just kind of move on. But when it comes to this white girl's post, it had so much more reach. Because people were there in the comment being like, why don't you post about Native American women going missing? But like the account was posting about them too. It's just that no one cared. And it kind of reminds me of that. It's like you don't care about victims, you know. You just want to do a little gotcha. You just want to pretend to be smart. And no. It's kind of exhausting to watch it. Holy shit, this is... Okay, fair. Now you can see it. Nice.
Well, I've been down there many times. I know the website very well, as does my friend Bob Ballard.
Shut the fuck up.
I've made 33 dives. I actually
All of my
calculated
Twitter videos started playing suddenly at the same fucking time. That was weird. Pragmatic reason to involve in Yugoslavia war at all? Like with Ukraine defend NATO before it's attacked, but that? They would just kill each other and no serious threat to NATO. Well, usually when you see like countries killing each other, that's kind of a problem by itself. You know, usually when you see a genocide happening, that's a problem by itself. And you could say that there was enough of a compelling reason to join. I would say it was a proper reason. Pretzlone. yeah, Prigozhin did call it that. Hey, Koresha, yes, Koresha, yes. I think it was those. But yeah. It was a legit military target. But then the Kosovo Albanian survivors claimed that Yugoslav authorities set it up. So wait, I need to open. Can I open the link? I wonder what English Wikipedia says about this. NATO officials affirmed that the bombing was an legitimate military target. Yeah, Kosovo Albanian survivors claimed that they had been set up by Yugoslav authorities as human shields, so they would be killed by NATO bombs. That one. So Yugoslav government had a reason to insist that NATO had targeted civilians. Little war in Montenegro in the early 2000s? Yeah. And no one really cared about our war for a very, very long time either. They're so fucking racist and throw the fascist card around when things don't go their way. It honest to God makes me want to strangle them. Yeah, there's something. I don't even think No, that isn't true. I do get bothered by it a lot. But like I don't know how to put it into words, that like it feels like they're using the fascist card just to kind of place themselves above a person. And that's what pisses me off about most of this. Like the pretend idea of moral superiority just weirds me the fuck out. It's like a very weird thing to experience, truly. Montenegro survived a lot. Montenegro lived through a lot of shit. Hey, wait, we didn't go through these. Prigozhin's emotional words about the real state of affairs in Zaporizhia seem to be confirmed in the form of certain actions of the military command, and maybe these actions are a consequence of voiced emotions. The channel writes that special forces units from all over the country are quickly gathering in Rostov-on-Don. Moreover, according to my information, we are talking not only about the Army Special Forces, the Airborne Forces and the MTR, but also about units of other departments. The obvious goal is the creation of a special reserve. I say up to 1,500 people. A decision with an incomprehensible end result, but at least something. Ever since the collapse of the USSR, the special forces of all departments have become a kind of fire brigade, which was quickly extinguished by bursts of nationalism and separatism. But here the war is a little different. However, as usual, when there is no way out and when there is a dead end, call the special forces. What is this? Sent to us by the guys from the front who are in Rostov. According to them, the command is preparing the most forceful way to detain the Wagnerites. Hey, this makes me feel hopeful, so I feel like it's not real. Can't forget the time where a Serb tried to justify them as Turks did it to them first, so they can do it to Kosovo people. Shit, yeah. But like the worst thing about that, a big reason as to why they were butchering people in Bosnia was because they saw Bosnia as a representation of everything that Ottoman Empire wanted the Balkans to be. So they saw Bosnia as a basically a traitor nation to the Slavs, because Bosnia has adopted the Ottoman religion and more Ottoman culture. So they were like, oh, Bosnians have abandoned what it means to be a Slav. They have abandoned what it means to be one of us. So this hatred was simmering around for a very, very long time. And then, you know, when the war started, of course, Serbians went into Bosnia to try and butcher it up. But there's something so sad about the fact that now they are very close to Turkey and trying to get closer to Turkey just because they perceive it as a possible ally. Like, you go and you do fucking ethnic cleansing, you do massacres, you kill so many people for being too Turkish. And now you're chill with Turkey just because now it's beneficial for you to be chill with them? I don't know. It's like... Should got the argument about the underlying ideas as well. If you're right-leaning, I need to argue why your right-leaning ideas are bad. But if you're fascist, then you're bad, and I don't need to engage with the argument, since we all agree fascism is bad. Oh yeah, based. Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah. Like a lazy way out of the conversation, right? It's like, I think it's very similar to what they do. It's a Twitter thing mostly, isn't it? But what they do when they immediately ignore someone's opinions on something because they had shit opinions on something else. It reminds me of that. Like, you could bring up a very valid point on something right now, and someone's gonna be like, well, yeah, this is a very valid point, but you were wrong on this point before. A completely unrelated one. So, like, I'm just going to ignore this one. Also, it's like, you're aware that you can't have a conversation about this one thing. You're aware of this, so you try to, like, go around, you try to poke at something different in order to still be able to have an argument for your own side. You don't really have it. You know you don't have it. The second you start looking into someone's past, you know you don't have a fucking argument. It's just, it's on Twitter. Twitter should be banned. That's what we should do, just ban it. Ban the whole fucking thing. Wait, let me do... Holy shit, I missed so many links. We're gonna do some linkies, okay? We're gonna click on the linkies properly. I did this one, Did I go here? Did I go here? I didn't. Mix up. Hey, shit, yeah, I sent this to Discord, right? A mix-up of doubles. It's Adele's birthday. Hey, wish him a happy birthday. Hope you have a great celebration. On 22nd June 2023, so like yesterday, there has been a mix-up of Putin's doubles, officially noted by the Russian media and on Kremlin's official website. During a live broadcast of the meeting with members of the Russian Security Council, led by Putin, another Putin laid down a wreath at the unknown soldier's grave and visited Victory Museum. At the same time, Putin had a meeting with Qatar Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman. Holy shit, that is a long ass name to read. The video is a visual representation of Putin's timeline. Let's go see this.
Мы сегодня будем обсуждать вопросы, связанные с мерами повышения эффективности работы с нашими основными партнерами и по ДКБ, и по Евразес. Много произошло событий за последнее время. Так или иначе, почти все мы принимали участие во встречах с нашими коллегами, союзниками, наметили определенные вещи, связанные с развитием наших отношений. Вот сегодня об этом обо всем поговорим. Но прежде всего мне хотелось бы начать с вопросов актуальной повестки, самых важных сегодня.
They said it was live, but I think the easiest solution to this and the most likely one is that the event was not actually live. I think they lied about it. I don't know why they would lie about it though. I'm not saying this as doubting that they're lying. Like I think I'm pretty sure. I'm like 99% sure they lied about this and that it's not actually a double. I'm certain they lied about this. I just don't know why you would lie about it. The only reason I could imagine is if they wanted to edit the meeting previously, because it was a meeting with members of the Security Council. So I guess a lot of things regarding the front line were discussed. So it would make sense to me that they would like film the meeting and then edit out problematic parts and then release the meeting to the public so they can't, know everything. I guess that would make the most sense. Patriotic nationalist? Because I want what's better for the people of the nation and for the land, especially for the future. But yet I get called a Nazi because I got nationalistic ideas. Yeah, I think it like depends on. There's always very, what's the word? Broad conversations to have about this, because people will define like wanting to see the nation be better differently. So I think, it would also, it would depend on that. But yeah, Nazi is definitely being misused a lot, especially by Westerners, because it's like the only evil they know, right? It's the only one they know. But it's like we had conversations previously in stream about this, about people who are like, oh, I want to have, I want my country to be strong and to be great and to be stable. And their idea of doing that is basically building an ethno-state, for example. Stuff like that. So you can always present your wants and your ideas as, let's say, positive if you want to. But I think it's valuable to still be aware of how much damage the politics you are advocating for might be causing. But at the same time, maybe you're just being called a Nazi because you actually like USA and that's it. So yeah. Yeah, one worth it. How is life? How is life? Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Oh shit, I misclicked. I wanted to click on the next one. Russia cannot be allowed to win because it will continue to advance. This will support its imperialism. It is like a wild animal that will eat a person. If a wild beast devours a man, it is usually said it should simply be tracked down and shot because it is used to eating human flesh. It's the same with Russia. Civic nationalism? Wait, civic nationalism is... Wait, am I defining it wrongly? Oh, traditional liberal values of freedom, tolerance, equality, individual rights and is not based on ethnocentrism. Okay, I was thinking of that. Because there was like the ethnocentric one, which is a comparison to the civic one. Yeah. So you have ethnic nationalism and you have civic nationalism. Yeah. That. Why people eat corn if we don't digest it? I think you will find the answer in also asking why do we eat spicy food if it makes our stomach hurt? It makes you shit out fire if you're one of those losers. But like, why do you do that? Why do people like eat a bunch of chocolate even though it like gives you nothing really useful? Why do you do that? It's because it's cute and tasty and you like that. Yeah, for me, like, spicy food is usually GG. But I know people who enjoy spicy food a lot, and they do have consequences. My mother being one of those people. So she has extra consequences. She can't eat a lot of spicy food, which is very sad because she loves it a lot. I'm kind of scared that as I go older, I'm going to go down the same path. Because, like, I don't know what I would be doing if I was unable to eat spicy food. I would be so sad. We don't have to track Russia down. True. That's also true. recruiting mercenaries by mailing all veterans in Russia with the help of the Veterans Interest Defense League. In the Samara region alone, population 3.2 million, 430,000 recruiting letters were sent. Based. Based. Everything going towards a civil war in Russia. Fucking based. Hey, by the way, we have to watch our videos. Wait, I had a timestamp up there. Where did I have it? Where did I have it? Over where the oh shit, I also want to click on this one. The times. No, wait, I did click on this one. Or? Okay, I did. I'm fucking based. I'm proper best person ever. Oh, here it is. Our 50-50, if you want to pull hot takes, I actually do. I just want to see this now. Too many things to see. Too many things to see, my dudes. Too many things. Wagner Group chief is now attacking the rationale for Russia's war with Ukraine. Prigozhin has flatly dismissed the denazification and demilitarization rationales cited by Vladimir Putin. He says the war had nothing to do with preventing a Donbas genocide or protecting ethnic Russians. Prigozhin attributes the war's outbreak to two factors. Okay, we've heard this. So, Shoigu and oligarchs. No. Well, Prigozhin has previously blasted oligarchs for not sacrificing appropriately in the war and called out fifth columns as well as military strategy. This is perhaps the fiercest critique of the rationale for war by any major Russian figure. It absolves Putin, though. So it's basically like, yeah, fuck Putin, but at the same time, I don't blame him fully, so the population listening to me speak is going to blame Shoigu for this, but not Putin. Wait, I need to click on this one.
Children seeing violence on television.
Wait, you said 150, so like before this, right? Where is he showing? Where is this little loser showing? No, 150 actually. Like here? At the end?
Basically had no social distancing. That was much more of an effect on death in this country than like the inefficacy of vaccines. This has been borne out by data after data after data set. Well, and then we have new variations of the vaccines, which have also helped.
Yeah, nothing was going to reduce the spread that much. It was like it was already one of the most contagious viruses, yes. And then it mutated to become more contagious.
Well, so. it helped with both transmissions and severity. That's a fact. The mRNA vaccines did.
Well, but I don't want to deviate too much. We're talking about
and it slowed spread, particularly with the wild type.
Pharmaceuticals. So my issue would be like, instead of having like three big companies, I think it was like 4 big companies, just do it. Would be to have it decentralized amongst many different producers who are not centralized. And that can be done. You just have to do it.
Talking like a prize, like, hey, if you develop this vaccine, whoever does it first, then you get the windfall.
Or even like a mandated coordination of production, but not have one company just be like, we're going to give $10 billion to company X. That's insane.
Didn't one of these companies refuse the money up front for fear of future ownership of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, was that Moderna or something like that?
I don't remember which one.
I don't know. Anyway, my point was, you know, there's that meme that Elon Musk made where like
if Twitch bans me, I'm moving to YouTube, I think the left is actually gone right
in a weird way. How is preventing death in a global pandemic?
Well, like, are you in favor of the war in Ukraine?
Like, I don't know how he thinks that his idea of doing this would be what's the word? More effective? Like, instead of giving it all to like one company, why wouldn't you enforce them to be decentralized? Why would you do that? Would it make for a better vaccine? It wouldn't. Would it make for a cheaper one? I don't know if it would. Like, what would you achieve with this? What would be the measurable success?
I'm sorry, I'll rephrase. Do you believe the U.S. should be involved in providing material support to the Ukrainians?
I have been in favor of it, yes. I do think that there are legitimate concerns about the continuation of doing so without brokering a peace and it becoming some sort of proxy for U.S. like war criminals within the United States. But in terms of like the Russian invasion, I am completely opposed and in support of the Ukrainian people.
Yeah, it's more a question of like, should we have given, what are we at, like 100, 200 billion?
I don't know, because there's guarantees which have not been delivered, and it's in terms of weapons, so I don't know what's actually been delivered.
This is what I don't understand. Okay. Like, people I used to know from back during Occupy are like flying Ukrainian flags and being like, we got to support this. Hassan Piker criticized me for saying we shouldn't be involved.
Yeah. He also said the invasion wasn't going to happen for sure, like 100%,
sure,
then it happened the next day.
But my position...
Why is he... Wait, I'm already getting salty over this, and I don't know if it's because I kind of don't really like this dude. But why the fuck would you bring up Hassan as if anything Hassan says has any sort of value? He's like, Hassan Piker criticized me. Who cares? What sort of a meaning does that have? Who cares what that man criticized? Why? What?
Has always been 99% non-intervention. Like, I've not changed at all in that regard.
Okay.
And the left has become pro-intervention, moving them right.
But the Ukraine is on the defense. They were invaded. This is not the same thing.
Talk about Kuwait and Iraq and...
You want to talk about that? I'm in favor. I mean, look, we were the equivalent of Russia in the case of Iraq. We invaded under completely false pretenses. We invaded under illegal pretenses.
What I'm saying is, like, this just
and we killed and decimated that country. Hundreds of thousands dead because of the U.S.
If the left
empire.
position was only opposed to war because of the circumstances of the war, then I would say the left is more pro-war and to the right of me on war.
I'm completely anti-war, but
that
the war
was such a stupid thing to
Russia
say.
Invaded, and now
like they are pro-war because they are pro-helping a country defend itself. That is what makes them pro-war, because they are pro-helping them. The first thing, but also another thing that like why do you give a shit about like left and right so much? That was so stupid. He starts it with being like, oh yeah, the right position was this, and then the left position was this, and now it feels like it's more criticism of like the left than actually bringing up valid points about the war, which just feels very dehumanizing from this perspective. I'm just saying it's like a very, you know, from the position of a European, that's really fucking weird. The fact that he doesn't even give a shit about the war happening. He cares about whether the leftists have responded to a war in a way in which he hoped they would be responding. And then also brings a stupid claim about the war in Iraq, which he properly pointed out was like a stupid claim. But it's such a weird thing to even argue.
Now Ukraine is trying to defend itself.
Right. So you're anti-war, you oppose war.
Yes.
But you're to the right of me when it comes to Ukraine.
I don't
cares?
think so.
Do you believe that the U.S. should be supplying and aiding the Ukrainians?
I do believe so, because they're defending themselves.
Who gets that money?
The military.
But
they're defending
Raytheon,
themselves.
Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm opposed to all of that.
I mean, look, if
you're to the right of me on
if
that
you
issue.
believe that Russia should be able to
what does he believe
Ukraine
that the
and
right
take
of me
territory
means?
without recourse, then I mean that's pro-imperialism. That's not, and that's still pro-war.
No,
yes, it is.
A lot of people around the world do a lot of bad things. I don't think the U.S. should be an empire going and funding wars all over the world.
We're not funding wars. We're funding the defense. I mean, like, and there's something that you can be said where should we draw a certain line? I have already conceded that strings should be attached and we should be involved in peace negotiations. But to flatten the power dynamics here, I mean, I would imagine this is like the same argument that you hear when it comes to Israel and Palestine, right? Where Palestinians are defending themselves, and then it's, oh my gosh, they are just it's completely symmetrical. Israel and Palestine. These are two actors just battling it out.
So you're in favor of intervention there?
I would love to fund Palestinians so that they were able to have a better life.
You are to the
for
right
themselves.
of me on foreign policy.
Well, we already fund Israel, dude.
What does that mean?
Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I don't have an answer to.
That was also stupid.
Funding military. We fund the Iron Dome.
Me literally saying...
Like, he can't even say he's opposed to it, but he's supposed to openly say that he's opposed to it. Why did he not answer that? Is there a reason why he did not answer that? Why did he not say, yeah, I'm opposed to funding Israel because I'm opposed to US interventionism and keeping wars going? Why did he not say it? I'm like legit confused at this point. Because it feels like he could have just said it, and then because he could have said it, he would have had a consistent point of like, yes, my position is that we should not be allowed to intervene and we should not be allowed to defend foreign wars, so we should not be funding Israel. It's what you would need to do. He has to check with his conspiracy friends. Oh yeah, no one asked him this question before now. He's like, oh, gotta do some text messages. He's doing the Pearl thing. She's opposed to funding Israel. Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, true. She's like, do you oppose funding Israel? And he's like, do I agree with her that funding Israel is bad? Or do I keep my position that funding wars is bad? It's a very tough question. It's not, bro. It's not.
Fund their military-industrial complex.
Anything enough about it?
Then if it's your principle and you're anti-war, then you should be saying then we should cut funding for Israeli defense right now.
I lean. That's why I said 99%. I'll say I absolutely lean against providing military aid to Israel. I just don't know. I will say a new war in Ukraine, in a territory that we are not, the United States is not, doesn't mean that I'm as far left as possible on the question of imperialism. It means that you are to the right of.
So wait, he's left enough to oppose helping Ukraine defend itself against an invasion, but he is not left enough on the issue of supporting foreign wars to be opposed to funding Israel. How is he claiming that like it's a more far left position to want to stop funding Israel than to stop helping Ukraine defend itself? How are you seeing one of these as like more radical? Wouldn't it be more radical to want to stop helping Ukraine defend itself because we know it's defending itself? Why wouldn't you see that as like the farthest possible position when it comes to non-interventionism? Israel isn't doing too much. Israel recently said they won't do too much because they're like basically scared that everything they give to Ukraine might be taken over by Russia and then given to Iran. It isn't a left or right issue, it's a right or wrong issue, and he's brainwashed. Okay, yeah, that's true. Christians in the US are super pro-Israel, and I think his audience might tend towards fundamentalist Christians. That would make sense. I would say it like it's a more radical position. It's weird that he is being like, oh yeah, I'm left enough on this issue not to want to support Ukraine, but I'm not left enough to want to stop supporting Israel. Like I would say, if you're looking at these positions and like trying to figure out which one of them is more radical, which one of them is more left, because in this context he uses left as like the idea that we shouldn't be intervening, which I don't really think is a leftist idea in the first place. I'm not really sure. But let's pretend it is. If the leftist idea is we should not be helping foreign wars, we should not be funding foreign countries, right? Surely funding Ukraine and funding Israel are not even like comparable on a scale he's using. I don't know why he's pretending like stopping the funding to Israel would be more radical than just helping Ukraine defend itself. I don't know.
Yeah. Like your position would provide funding for massive multinational military-industrial complex corporations.
I think that's the fact that we do have those contracts is messed up. I think the United States should be more primarily. You want to nationalize the defense industry? You want to go for that? I'm down.
I don't know about nationalizing that. That empowers it, makes it permanent.
Well, there's always going to be a weapons industry, and there's always going to be. It should be it should be severely cut into. But the United States, by the way, made a promise in 1993 to Ukraine that we would defend them if they denuclearized.
That's true.
So that is part of what we're doing in this instance.
That's true too, and I think that's an interesting question about upholding our obligations that I don't disagree with. It would be very difficult for us. Granted, the issue is I think I'm like a little kid. I'm like 7 years old when something like that happens, and now in my name, we engage in this conflict and war. I think it's fair to say that while I can understand that treaty exists, as a now adult who is paying tax into this, I have the right to object to past agreements that weren't made by me. That being said, I just my point on this one was specifically, I see all these Ukrainian flags.
Okay, wait, this looks stupid to me. You know what I'm not seeing here? Like, the promise was made in his name. That is true. you can object to the promise being made, true, but like you have to have a proper reason as to why you object to this promise being fulfilled, the obligation itself being fulfilled. And in this specific situation, like we talk about, you know, upkeeping peace and everything, the specific promise was made to Ukraine as like, hey, Ukraine, if you choose to give up your nukes, if you stop being a nuclear country, if we have less nukes in the world, which is what we want less countries to have nukes, we want less nukes to be around in the first place. So if you stop having your nukes, if you give up your nukes, we are going to be protecting you. That was the promise made in his name, right? So if you want to argue against the obligation, I feel like you should argue against that. You could argue that like, oh yeah, the promise was made in my name, but like I support every country having a nuke. So I don't really think we should fulfill this obligation because the promise was made in my name and I think the promise was shit. I could see that. I would disagree with that point, but I could see that. But like this one being just like, I don't know, it feels like if you actually press him on the reasons why the promise was made, I guess he would have to agree because I don't really know how he could disagree with that. So, what?
I just, my point on this one was specifically, I see all these Ukrainian flags and profiles. I make a comment in agreement with Hassan where I was like, he was right about Mr. Beast. And then I was talking about military intervention and how it's wrong. We're spending $100 billion on this war in Ukraine. We shouldn't be doing it. And then he laughed at me over it. And I'm just like, genuine question. When did it become, or maybe I was always wrong, when I was at like Occupy or doing these like anti-Iraq war protests back in the 2000s, I thought that it was the left position to oppose military expansion,
See, he's doing the stupid thing again.
But today, it's inverted. Strangely.
He's doing the like bullshit thing where he's like, oh yeah, the left must be like this and then the right must be like this, as if he has any sort of value in the conversation. It's such a stupid little, I don't know, it annoys me. It's a stupid conversation to have. Who the fuck gives a shit about what the left position should be and what the right position should be? Who cares about this, bro? Helping a nation defending itself is what should matter here. Like, do you oppose that or do you support that? What do you think about that? Shut the fuck up. Oh, the left used to be like this. Now the left is like this. Who the fuck cares, bitch? Who the fuck cares, okay? Surprise, surprise. People may oppose some type of foreign intervention and maybe against some other type of foreign intervention. Wow. Wow, how surprising this is, truly. None of the far left seem to support true non-interventionism. Even Bernie Sanders is pro-supporting Ukraine. Oh yeah, I understand some 20-year-old communist college students will talk about it while getting high in the dorm, but it isn't at the level of exerting genuine political control, which is the best thing about people like that, is that they have no real support in politics. They have no real power and they should never be allowed to have any real power. So yeah, base that. Hey, yeah, happy midsummer. Even people like Hassan Piker were against supporting Ukraine until they were basically forced into support. That actually brings me like to another, I feel like that would be a more interesting aspect to this conversation. Hassan Piker, he was like the representation of Twitch leftists, right, for a while. Isn't he like the biggest leftist streamer or whatever? But he was against, I'm not sure if he was against supporting Ukraine, but he was anti-Ukraine in some of his arguments. But he wasn't doing that on the topic of USA interventionism being bad. He was doing that because he for a while genuinely believed that Russian invasion on Crimea was justified. So, you know, talking about like left-wing, right-wing points, how does that play into with everything? That was an incredibly shit take. What do we like form of left-wingers if the representation of left-wingers makes a point that the invasion was justified? He wasn't even like against supporting Ukraine because of, again, like USA needing to just stay aside. He was supporting Russian invasion. But you know, then it's like, I don't know, just the whole left and right thing is stupid in the first place, isn't it? And I guess he's just a good show of that. No, Chomsky. Yeah, he justified the occupation of Crimea. Yeah. I still remember there was this one great video by Destiny. And the video is about Hassan making stupid claims on Ukraine. And the video starts with Hassan saying, "I never said the Russian invasion on Crimea was justified." And then the next clip is Hassan saying that the Russian invasion on Crimea was justified. It's that. It's like, come on. Shit foreign policy takes for some time. Yeah, definitely.
It's the Trump supporters saying no war.
No,
and it's
because
the
they're in favor of
pro-war.
Russian imperialism. That is, you're again flattening power dynamics of who was the invader and who has been invaded.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I'm in favor of the United States abiding by the treaty that we promised Ukraine in 1993.
I'm not talking about any of that.
Said that we were going to defend them if they do denuclearize. And by the way, why I'm more pro-war than you, or anti-war, Jesus, anti-war than you, is that I'm in favor of broad denuclearization. And I think that we should continue to make our promises to countries that choose not to engage in making nuclear power.
How does that make you more than me?
In nuclear weaponry.
I don't disagree on that at all.
Okay, then there you go. But I'm in favor of committing and making our and because they denuclearized and said that we're not going to create nuclear weaponry, I am in favor of keeping our promise on that front so that we are able to incentivize and keep our promises that we are going to back you up if you choose not to make nuclear weaponry.
I don't know if it's pro-war, if you kinda maybe. Like, wait, I don't think denuclearization is pro-war if you actually hold on to your promises. If you do a thing that we are doing right now, the pussy little thing with like, should we be helping, should we not be helping, then it's different. But in a situation where, imagine like if USA actually had a proper response the second Russia invaded Ukraine, 2014, Russia sends the troops over, and USA is immediately like, no, bitch, no, we gave promise to Ukraine. And they just fucking wipe out all the invading Russians. I feel like that would be very, how would I say it? It would be an action that would not only encourage more countries to denuclearize because they would want to be under the umbrella of protection of USA, but at the same time, it would mean that less wars are likely to happen in the future because countries wanting to do an invasion are aware that, hey, if I go and invade this country, USA is going to come in and just destroy me, demolish every single person in my military. So I think in long term, it would cause more peace. I think it would be better. Yeah, but I don't agree with defunding US military, though. Yeah. Defund U.S. military make guarantees for countries that give up their nukes. I could see that. Wait, wasn't she open for like, what was it, nationalizing it? I think she said that that the complex is going to be around anyways. So I don't know if she was for defunding the U.S. military. But yeah, if she had both of those positions at the same time, yeah, then true, she would be. It would be a delusional position to take, definitely. Oh, she wants to nationalize and cut its size significantly. Oh, I thought it was just like nationalizing. I didn't know she also wants to cut it down. Then yeah, it's like you're making a promise to a country that you're going to defend them. And then what? They get attacked and, well, you can send a few troops and that's it. Yeah. I mean, also though, to be fair, maybe cut its size significantly. Maybe for USA military, to be fair, I wonder how much you could cut down its size. While still keeping the strongest fucking military anyone could be facing. Dude, that video with them like eating those pizzas. She fucking had like a little baggie, put some water in it got heated up. Pizza comes out, you eat pizza. As a fucking soldier in a forest somewhere. I think it really blew my mind on the amount of money that USA military actually gets and uses for developments. So I guess you could cut it down to like a certain size and it would still be extremely, extremely strong. But also I guess she's not really thinking about controlled cuts like I am. Idealistic, yeah.
It's more of just like a libertarian thing.
I mean,
libertarian versus authoritarian.
I think it's that first of all, anti-war is a dumb like position. I'm sorry. It's everybody's like anti-wars they don't like, but obviously like I can composite a scenario where you would support like an intervention. Like if you gave me time to like think about it.
That's why I say 99%, because nothing's absolute. Like if you were to tell me that Vladimir Putin he's live streaming himself about to launch a nuclear weapon at Washington D.C., I'd be like, okay, we got to do something about that.
But there's something to what she's saying, where the Ukraine, after the fall of the Soviet Union, had the third largest nuclear weapon stockpile.
That's right.
And in exchange for giving it up, there were security guarantees. Now, if you're worried about nuclear proliferation in other countries that might lead to a nuclear war, protecting or making sure that they can maintain their territorial integrity, just as an example to other countries that might want to denuclearize in the future, is a worthwhile stake. And I think I understand that position.
This dude,
it makes perfect sense.
I've never seen this dude before.
I understand it. I don't care, though, right? So it's kind of like if some dude cut a deal with, like, someone in my family cut a deal with someone else, and then 30 years later they walk up and say, you know, your dad told me that if I ever had this problem, you were going to take care of me.
Yeah, see, he's doing the same stupid thing again. Like, he's not actually engaging with the reason why the deal was made and why less nukes around is a good thing. He's not engaging with that. He's engaging with the idea of, like, yeah, I don't really think promises should be passed around, which I don't really think is in any sort of a way a valuable response to it. So, I don't know. I don't care about, yeah, basically.
Governments change, policies change, and the idea that because 30 years ago someone cut you a promise means that I now have to spend $200 billion defending you. The people of this generation who are inheriting this country did not agree to that. No, it's fine.
So what does that say to people who might be manufacturing their own nuclear weaponry? That it doesn't, that the promises made by the world superpower don't really matter. And
I don't like the idea of America being
necessarily
this world superpower.
I agree.
My view is probably different from you in that regard. I'm more so like, I think it'd be great if we brought jobs back here, if we protected the middle class, maybe had stronger workers' rights.
100%. You want to talk unions? I'm in favor of that.
Tariffs on imports for two reasons. The idea that we'd manufacture a car in China and then ship it on a boat over here just to waste energy because someone's willing to do it cheaper.
He's absolutely bolding in some ridiculous pattern.
So we need to build up the incentives for all the manufacturing to happen here in the United States, to create good jobs, to protect the workers. Worry less about whether or not we're going to go blow up some foreign country, a bunch of kids in it or something like that.
You know those old religious hairstyles? Who's the dude I'm thinking of? Wait, let me Google in the browser.
I think, like there's like like you're not seeing this past like what's currently happening now, because I get it, right? And I was a big Ron Paul guy, and he didn't like the idea that one generation could promise the sons of a future generation.
Right. That's exactly
right.
And
I understand that position, but if we don't want Saudi Arabia to nuclearize, we don't want Iran to nuclearize, and we're like, hey, like, you know, like, we got you, like, don't nuclearize. We're gonna try to,
you know, these like hairstyles. I bet he has one of these under the beanie. We're just never allowed to see it. But like he takes it off and it's one of these things. That's it. I would bet my fucking life on that.
Like, you know, be the 800-pound gorilla in the room so that you don't have problems. And then they look and say, well, you made that promise to Ukraine, and then 30 years later, they're invaded by Russia and completely
Why are we
obliterated.
making those promises?
Because that's the nature of a treaty.
No, you know, the idea is
how could any treaty exist, Tim, if people had your position and just said, yeah, fuck it.
People.
So that's anti-diplomacy, and that's pro-war.
Any treaty. Oh, come on.
Being
anti-diplomacy, like, we shouldn't go to war. Like, that's pro-war.
Well, being anti-diplomacy is
we can make a treaty around. Here's why we won't attack you.
Wait, but also like a stupid fucking thing to do. Anti-promises. So I guess anti-security guarantee is being given. But then he is arguing for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Does he think there's a possibility of doing this without security guarantees being given? Because the whole position just fucking crumbles on this. How the fuck are you against this in any sort of... How do you explain this to yourself? It's like, hey, let's have peace talks, but then, like, 20 years later, people in Russia could just be like, hey, why did we promise not to invade Ukraine? My grandpa made the promise, not me. I'm just gonna go and invade. And then there's no other countries which have given like security guarantees to Ukraine, or no security guarantees that matter in order to punish Russia for invading and for breaking their promise. This just makes no fucking sense. What does he think peace talks are? How does he think peace talks happen? Russia will ignore any threat. Yeah, that's why we need security guarantees. That's why we need, we would be very good with having, for example, USA be like, hey, yeah, if Russia breaks the treaty and if Russia actually like goes over the border lines that we have agreed to in this again, we're going to fucking wipe the shit out of them. And it feels like, if you're not giving that to Ukraine, why would Ukraine agree to a treaty? Why the fuck would they agree to a peace talk? What would they be getting with a peace talk? Russia's just gonna invade again. I don't know. Stupid contracting crypto. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a stupid position to take.
Fine. Here's a treaty around, I'm going to allow your citizens to cross my border with no visa and we'll reciprocate, like, back and forth. And then having one being like, in 30 years, if anyone comes to fight you, we will fight on your behalf, despite the fact that you're not an allied nation or a bunch of other issues.
They are, by definition, they are an allied nation, too. That also is such a stupid thing to say. By definition, that is your allied nation. By definition, there are interests that you both are pursuing. There are goals that you both have pursued. That is why the treaty was signed. You both want less nukes for your own reasons. So you sign a treaty so everyone gets something, and so you get more benefits for pursuing this common goal of having less nukes in the world. By definition, that is an ally. What do you mean that this is not an allied nation? Does he think only like NATO states are allied nations? How does he see this? Here it's like 8 in the afternoon. It's not even that late night. It's like a lot more late night than my usual stream times, though.
I don't think at any point ever the U.S. should have been making these promises. And then to come out and be like,
see why?
But now Saudi Arabia is, I'm sure every country is going to be upset if we don't fight on the behalf of some other country.
No, it's not.
There are limitations. Look, nothing's absolute. I get it. We're in this position now. There's an interesting question of South Korea. People ask me, what if China invaded? And I'm like, well, we got a lot of troops there right now. So I understand the circumstances of today. But the issue is, for one, we could have put a no-fly zone over Ukraine before the invasion started. That would have stopped Russia in its tracks.
A no-fly zone is a de facto declaration of war once the plane gets shot down, once the United States...
And that means Russia would have to have shot down, would have had to attack us.
I mean, either way, the no-fly zone and us getting more directly involved in that way would be catastrophic, potentially. War between two nuclear powers.
Agreed. Fair point. I think my position is more so just...
Mine goes.
This is a Russian border dispute over the Donbass region. The U.S.
It's an invasion, Tim.
Sure.
Like there was a stupid point.
I'm talking about the specifics of why they're doing it, right?
Yeah,
they've invaded Ukraine because they want the land bridge into Crimea. Why do they want the land bridge into Crimea? Because Western forces were courting Ukraine. Ukraine was being courted to the Russian Trade Federation and to the European Union.
I don't really know who the lady is, to be honest.
The European Union. It would be a massive boost to their economy, and they get access to the Schengen zone.
I've never seen the lady before.
Russia didn't.
But bro, he goes... My man goes, they invaded because they wanted a land bridge to Crimea, but like they don't deserve fucking... First of all, what in the world makes you think you can do an invasion because you want a geographical feature, right? It's like, oh yeah, bro, I want some nice little coastline down there, so I'm just gonna go invade the fuck out of Montenegro because they want some more coastline. That would be an incredibly stupid thing to do. What in the world makes you think you deserve a part of another country and you can just go and invade? What the hell? But then also, like, they don't even have the right to Crimea in the first place. It's like, hey, I stole this one part of your country by invading it, and this somehow justifies me stealing another part of your country that I also invaded. How... And then he's like anti-war. He's supposed to be anti-war, but he's okay invasions on the foreign territory just because you want the geographical feature they have. This is like when people say, oh yeah, Russia invaded Crimea because it wanted a warm water port. Who the fuck cares what Russia wanted? Like, who the shit cares what they want? Do you think that's how we do, like, foreign policy? This is how we do International fucking law? Oh yeah, it's not okay for a country to invade a sovereign neighbor unless the sovereign neighbor has some real cool water, because then you may take whatever you want in the area. You may butcher their people all they want to you. That water, beautiful. Who cares what you want? How does he do it? Team pool? Maybe he has doubles just like Putin does. Maybe that's what he's doing. Just ridiculous. The broadcast in Ukraine doesn't really exist and is a fake nation, and they are waging the war for the new world order. But to these moronic fucking imbeciles swallowing Russian propaganda for Western audience, this is a border dispute. Yeah, that's you. Nah, ridiculous. Yeah, they just wanted the land bridge, and then Russia's at the same time being like, all Ukrainians are Satanists. We need to drown Ukrainian children. Or like re-educate them into normal people by making them forget the fact that they are Ukrainian. But
Like
it's a
that.
border
So
dispute.
Russia tried to intervene. Yanukovych was ousted, fled the country. Russia then immediately got their troops outside of Sevastopol and said, we're claiming this, our warm water port in the Black Sea. And then we started to see the bubbling up of the Eastern
See, like they
Front.
have no right to do that. In what universe would a country have a right to do that? You do not have a right to do that to an allied country. You do not have a right to claim a part of their territory. That is not... No. Like, no matter how many troops you have in their area. No. Genocidal Ruski propaganda? Like, bro. Dude, I'm pretty sure, unironically, I'm pretty sure he knows about it, and he's just choosing to act stupid anyways. This is what they mostly do. It's like, if you remember that debate, Dylan, Anna, and I don't know who else. By the way, talking about that debate, you remember the dumbest person from that debate? Omni? He hangs out in Nikki's chat. He was recently there talking about the debate. He was like, I thought I did well. Like, bro, you didn't. But it reminds me of that, because at one point in the debate, Anna is like, bro, like, Putin several times so far said that Ukrainians aren't a real nation, and he wants to wipe us off the face of the earth. He doesn't think we have a right to exist as a nation. And the anti-Ukrainian folks go, what? Putin said this? One of them goes, do you have a source? How do you dare enter a conversation on this topic without fucking knowing what Putin's opinion on Ukraine is? That is like the base knowledge. That's like the basics of this you should be having. You know, what does Putin think about Ukraine? The basic, literal, the most shallow knowledge of this you must have. Not even going into like the depths of this, the most shallow part of this, the stuff that you see constantly pointed out on basically all global news. Like, we had Putin's speech here in Croatia on our TV, not really as like a propaganda piece, I don't want to make it seem like that, but we had news showing what he was saying and then translating it and then looking into the meaning behind some of the things he said. It was a thing that was like globally available to people. And for you to not know what he said, how dare you pretend your opinion on this conflict has any sort of value? Maidan in 2014? Ah, shit. You're saying you want to kill Ukrainians if you're a Russian? Racism? If they're both Slavs? I think it depends on whose definition of racism you're using, because European definition of racism is different than American definition of racism. In America, they would hear about that and they would be like, no, because in America they see racism as a very skin tone oriented thing. So you remember Whoopi Goldberg, I think, made a claim relatively recently on some stupid ass talk show in USA. Wait, let me try to find it. About how World War II was white people killing other white people and it wasn't racism. She basically said that was it on Holocaust specifically? She basically said that Holocaust was white on white crime, so it was not racism because it was white on white. But like from European point of view, it was racism because our view of race isn't based solely on your skin color. It has a lot to do with your ethnicity. So that's why, for example, Jews were seen as a different race. It wasn't as if they like by their skin tone were different, but they were seen as a different race because of their ethnicity. It's also why, I don't know, like you see Balkan people being racist towards each other. I would call it being racist towards each other. But like in American view, it wouldn't be racism because we are the same skin color. But like in our view, it's like we are of different ethnicities. And ethnicities are what forms a race of people in our worldview, not skin color only. Southern French Protestants, Belgian Walloons. Yeah, that too. Everything is racism, my dude. Everything. White on white racism exists. Irish and other immigrants weren't considered white and were considered second-grade people sometime. Oh shit, yeah, maybe that too. Yeah. I don't know too much about like USA views on that, but yeah. Seems to consider nationality, religion, culture, skin color, history, country of origin to be important. It's a different view of a race because a race itself is a very cultural concept. It's a cultural thing. Race, like there's no real way to define a race in a way that matters. I want to say there's no real way to do that. A race is a group, and then what this group is depends on who you ask. So, I don't know, me saying that Serbs are born with an intrinsic need to be violent, I feel like it would be racism, right? Because I would see them as separate race from us. I would call it racism, but I don't know how in USA cultural view this would be seen because like we are the same looking. Sometimes people who don't know everything also see what others are missing. Maybe it's true Ukraine's antagonistic position towards Russia is at least partially responsible for the escalation of the conflict. Do you not think that Ukrainian antagonistic position towards Russia is very justified considering the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine? Like I'm not sure what you mean. It's like, hey, I go there and I try to kill this person and the person now hates me for it, so I'm gonna try to kill them harder because they hate me for it. Making a tasty stew out of your cat? Yeah. It is. It's like, why are cats not edible but pigs are? Are Slavic people considered white? I don't even know, like in USA culture view, I'm not sure where we would go, to be honest. I don't know. I guess, yeah? I mean, we should, right? In USA, yes. In Europe, probably no. Yeah, but like we don't use white. I don't know. I guess like in Europe, if you would use white, I guess you would use it. I'm not even sure if you would use it like a Westerner, because some Westerners are not white. I don't know what you would use it for. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it used to be. It wasn't the whites that mattered, but rather the Anglo-Saxons or some stuff. White is a pretty new concept even in America. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Why doesn't really apply in Europe? That too is a valid point though, because I often see Europeans, I think, introducing themselves into conversations coming from a USA culture view, and it sounds very childish very often, like when USA people talk about, white culture, and then some European jumps into the conversation with like, do you mean French culture or do you mean Serbian culture? What do you mean white culture? Because not all white people are the same. Like he's obviously talking about Americans in that regard. So I guess it's seen as like a very American concept in the start, right? Because it is mostly people kind of jumbling them all together, but also it makes sense for USA because you kind of mishmash of cultures. Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, Wagner. Basically, Prigozhin has claimed, where do I have the video on this? Prigozhin claimed that the war did not start because of a need to protect people in Donbass. He claims that the war started because Shoigu wanted to get more medals, and also because Russian oligarchs wanted to get more power for themselves, and that was it. So it was like a very, very open, very strong attack on Russian Ministry of Defense and their excuses used so far. So yeah. Wait, vegan. No. I still... I wanna hear you elaborate on the idea that Ukrainian antagonistic position towards Russia is at least partially responsible for the escalation of this conflict. How much responsibility would you be placing on a nation that got invaded? And there's a reason, because it's being invaded by another nation using genocidal rhetoric, it feels rather antagonistic towards them. Like, are you genuinely blaming responsibility on them? Why are you doing that? Most Americans, I think, would consider the Holocaust racism, since even Jews that were atheists were targeted, right? And they were portrayed as non-Aryan. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Use what to describe what it's used to describe in the US. Even they have issues where things like Nigerian immigrants are a very different social group to African Americans. Yeah, that too. I have definitely seen some Americans use the groupings very... I don't know if I want to say incorrectly, just in very silly ways. Why don't you love me when I try to genocide you and claim you don't deserve to exist? Yeah, that. It's like a weird point to bring, and he's just writing other comments and refusing to elaborate on that, but it's such a weird thing to say. It's like, it's something that Elon Musk would say. You know how stupid his Twitter comments are? He sees someone say the dumbest mistake ever, and he's like, curious. We need to talk more about this. That's the energy I'm getting from this. Someone's like, oh yeah, well, actually Russians are escalating right now because Ukrainians are antagonistic towards them. And someone like this would be like, curious. Erika, you're getting timed out for 10 minutes.
Let's say, hypothetically, you got sent to Siberia.
When you are allowed back in chat, you will elaborate on the idea that Ukrainian antagonistic towards Russians is at least partially responsible for escalation of this conflict. I don't know what in the world gives you the idea that you can just share your other dumb shit opinions if I ask you a question. The war started after there were gas deposits discovered in East Ukraine, and the government wanted to sign a contract with Shell to make use of the deposits, directly competing with Russia. I do also think that while I do see some value in that view, at the same time I'm like, this was genocidal. Like this was not caused just by the deposits. This was a genocidal thing spanning back generations, and it only, like, it might have gotten a bit rushed or whatever because of something like this, but I would absolutely not see something like that as a thing that drove it. In the same way I would not see wanting a one water board as a thing that drove this war to happen. It's more than when we're trying to categorize a given population into social groups with shared experiences. Black-white isn't as useful as things like religious background say. Oh yeah, that too. And even then, like, if in all of these though, you would have problems, wouldn't you? Because I don't know, you like put them as in religious background things, and then you have people who believe more radical things and people who are more just casually religious. You got some hateful ass people who are atheists. You got some very loving people who are religious. You got it vice versa. Any sort of a group being made feels like it's going to be a group that is relatively just incorrect and too broad to make any proper, how would I say, comments. Very broad comments based on it, right? Why did they claim Ukraine banned Russian language? Oh, that is a fake talking point. Yeah. It didn't. It never did it. I don't know why they claim it. We had a situation here on stream once where someone said that Ukraine banned Russian classical writings, and they sent me a link to an article that was supposed to prove it, and the article literally says, "Hey guys, this does not mean Ukraine is banning Russian classical writings. It just meant that, what was it, like you were not allowed to carry more than, was it 10 books from Russia over the border at the same time, something like that. There was no ban on Russian language. It is incredibly stupid. Zelensky himself was speaking Russian until 2022, until the start of the invasion. Many Ukrainians still do speak Russian. It would be unrealistic to ban Russian language in Ukraine. It's a point that I feel only Westerners are falling for because they don't know enough about Ukraine. For someone knowing the history of the country, you really wouldn't fall for that shit. You know, you would see that talking point and you would be like, ha, this is fucking stupid. But I think in the West, it's like a lot easier for people to fall for it because they are not really aware of the history of the two countries. Many such claims back in 2014? Yeah, definitely. And none of them can show you any proof of Ukrainian banning Russian language, apart from, was it in 2019 when the new education law got presented? 5 years after the fucking invasion. And I always pointed out, and they always like refuse to answer to the specific point. But they bring up the idea that Russia had to invade to protect ethnic Russians in Ukraine because their language was being banned. And then the only example you have of Russian language not even being banned, but being lessened in use in like educational facilities in favor of Ukrainian being taught more, which is fucking based and what they should be doing. A country's official language should be taught to everyone. It happened like years after the invasion started, and they bring me up this thing with like, oh yeah, Russia had to invade because what? Ukraine was going to lessen the amount of Russian in education in like 5 fucking years? You think Russians saw the future or whatever? Not even to mention like Ukraine wouldn't even do that if the invasion happened. It's such a stupid fucking thing. Oh yeah, but also yeah, ethnic Russians too. Yeah, also that. Yeah, absolutely. Speak Serbian. Yeah, pričaj srpski da te ceo svet razume. Oh wait, let me see this. How Russia helped Hitler rebuild Germany's army, both in training and materials. Yeah, that too. No, how did they? What was their fucking message? Those who erased fascism are called Nazis. What do you mean erased fascism? Are we not looking at the same Russia right now? What? Ukrainian is the official language of Ukraine, and the state shall ensure the comprehensive development and functioning of the Ukrainian language in all spheres of social life throughout the entire territory of the country. Based. Fucking based. It should be. When they hear Ukrainians speaking Russian, they point the finger at them and mock them. Why don't you speak Ukrainian and use it as evidence of Ukraine not being a real state? Oh shit, yeah, that too. And you can't speak Ukrainian because that makes you a Ukrainian nationalist and therefore practically a Nazi. Yeah. So you can't speak anything. Just like, that's it. But then you don't speak anything and then it's like, oh, look at this. Ukrainians don't really have a say in this war. Lumping members of an immutable characteristic together on the basis of things like their skin color, religious culture, tradition, national, ethnic background, and then separating and treating them differently. So under this, then yes, saying you want to do violence against Ukrainians is racism in the broadest sense. I would see it like that. I do wonder though, also on the topic of specifically Russia and Ukraine, for example, Russians do believe that Ukrainians are Russians. How is it that one of them who said that Ukrainians are just Russians who have some sort of a brain disorder, and because of this they are imagining that they belong to a different state? Stuff like that. So like if you were to look into that, would you still call it racism? Because they're not really imagining them as being people of a different race, no matter how you define a race. They're not imagining them as people of a different group. They're imagining them as broken people of the same group you are. So I don't know if I would call it racism then. Russians use language matter as the reason why they should liberate Baltic states too. They said Russians are being oppressed there because they're forced to learn local languages. Oh, horror, horror. Horror, horror. Didn't ban Russian, didn't bomb civilians, didn't have weapon biolabs. Zelensky wasn't installed by CIA. Protesters in the building have been throwing Molotovs and shooting people when they were killed by other protesters. Nazis were a tiny minuscule proportion of Ukrainian military and held no political power, only joined after Russians invaded in 2014. Yeah, all of it, like, yeah, based. Hey, yo, Zusko, I'm doing great. How are you doing? How are you doing? How's your life going? We were watching some debates on the topic of Ukraine, and now we gotta watch Spaghetti Kozak because I have not seen his video yet, and you people have changed my my plan for the stream, and I still haven't seen this. By the way, can you hear my fan in the background when I speak? Because like I see him on the, I don't know if I see him. I'm seeing some noise in the like noise tracking thing, and I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I have my fan on because I'm fucking dying. You can? Shit, I hate that. I am not happy about that. I hoped you can't, and I like moved it to the side. But when it's really when I'm not speaking, then the noise counter is like very low, and then I'm like, okay, you probably can't hear it, especially if there's a video playing. You probably can't hear it because the video is like way louder than this. But then when I speak, I wonder if the fan noise also gets like ASMR politics. We need to do that. I'm gonna do the whole thing with like. If they see Ukrainians and Russians as the same and want to end national division, then that's not necessarily racism, but that's still borderline. Yeah, I could see that. Did you just call your fans noise? Yeah, how do you think I see you, chat? I see you people as noise. That's what this is. That's what this is. Russian snipers were deployed to Ukraine. They were shooting people in the crowd to cause panic and intimidate them. Yeah. Anna also talked about this a lot. Really yapping and stuff.
Hello viewers. As I said in a previous video, I have no plans to turn this into a serious channel about the war in Ukraine or politics. But over the year I spent in Ukraine trying my best to follow the discourse with nothing but a smartphone, I was forced to read a lot of nonsensical claims and stupid arguments without any way to...
Sorry guys, I have to pause the video. I have to see this. Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news. Prigozhin is claiming Russian armed forces launched a missile attack on Wagner PMC camps. Don't get your hopes up though. It's Russians. Never get your hopes up when it comes to Russians. Until we see them blow up their own country, don't get your hopes up. But yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm begging. I'm begging. God, please make this real because it would be the funniest thing ever. 3 sides in this war. Yeah, I guess. If we do, this is going to be great. If we actually do, man, we are doing the best we could. Holy shit. For if you can Belgorod parties. Shit, yeah. Valid, yeah. How's Belgorod doing? I haven't seen any news about them, and it should be keen for a while. Belgorod. explosions in Belgorod, Russia reported 5 hours ago. Election committee. Wait, Radio Svoboda, let me show this. Shebekino. Elections were cancelled in Shebekino because the residents left due to shelling. Electoral Commission of Belgorod region of Russia cancelled the elections to the Shebek District Council of Deputies due to the mass exodus of local residents. Head of the Regional Election Committee, Ihor Lazarev, noted that almost all voters and members of 40 election commissions left Shebekin district. What, almost all of them? Almost all of them? Dude. Well,
to reply besides Twitter. Naturally, I
You've
had a
threw
lot more to
funniest
say
thing
than
ever.
that medium would allow, and now that I have a better platform, it's time to address some things. With that in mind, I present to you in no particular order the dumbest arguments about the war in Ukraine.
By the way, can I just flex with you, because I assume this is like the game he's playing. This is the how's it called? Death from Above. Is it? Can I flex with you guys, because the Death from Above account follows me on Twitter. Because the Death from Above account follows me on Twitter. Okay, so I'm kind of happy about that. Okay. Nerd hickey.
And about the war in Ukraine.
It's a cool game, maybe.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
I'm trying to find one specific piece of news. No, I can't find it.
Why don't they just negotiate?
Who saw the news recently on a Wagner dude who killed some people when he was returning home from his military service? Dehumanization of Ukrainians isn't because they're seen as a different racial group, but because of the pan-Eurasian idea that Ukrainians and Russians are the same race, but Ukrainians' culture should be standardized with other Russians. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that. Medea Benjamin. Yeah, absolutely, fucking idiot. Have you seen, by the way, if you wanna see some the types of people who support this woman, go to Code Pink, and then go to their last petition for peace in Ukraine, and then go see the usernames of people who signed it. Just like, I'm pretty sure I can't show it on stream. Last time I went to check, it was yeah.
We see repeated calls from all over the spectrum for negotiations. The implication is always that this is some kind of stalemate, and we need to
that's
negotiate
also a valid thing, because the thing about them, like portraying Ukrainians pigs as and making the collages of them and everything. Like we've seen 13 make those memes about like Ukrainians drowning like pigs when they destroyed the Novakahovka Dam. So, fuck, I forgot where I was. I think what this speaks into is that Russian propaganda is very, how would we say this? It's not standardized. Okay, this is the same issue, like, because like right now, one of you is presenting an example of it absolutely being racism, and the other is presenting an example of it not being racism. And both of these are propaganda points used by Russians. And in the very much same way, it's like the point that Ukrainians are Nazis, but then at the same time, they will be mocking Zelensky for being Jewish. Like, you remember that, which Russian embassy shared that illustration of Zelensky. And like that's traditional, the very problematic caricatures of Jewish people being made by certain people on political spectrum. They were sharing that illustration around. So like on one hand you're like Ukrainians and Nazis, on the other hand you're like, let's hate Zelensky because he's a Jew, and let's also pretend that he has some ties to Soros, even though Soros is like the only thing connecting him and Zelensky is the fact that they both have Jewish descent. There's nothing else. The propaganda is not standardized, and it's not really, in a way it's not supposed to be, because it's supposed to fit everyone. You know how, listen, getting into nerd areas right now, okay, getting into nerd areas. What was the dude's name? There is something for every fool is a quote that I need. I need to remember the dude's name. But you guys know how, like, when no, that was a specific quote. When you talk about like stuff like cold reading and stuff, there's like very broad statements that you can be making, and these broad statements are going to fit basically every single person existing, but they all interpret them differently. And because they interpret them differently, the statement is very useful, because it's you can just like chunk it out in the universe, and people are going to latch onto it because they interpret it in a way that fits them. This is like what a horoscope does to you. You know how like you could read your horoscope for today, and then I could read the same one, and then your friend could read the same one, and we could all be reading the same exact shit, but we're going to interpret it differently. So they say like, oh, there's going to be a change happening in your relationship, and we all interpret that shit differently. It's very much the same when it comes to these types of propaganda. So they go like, Ukrainians are radicalized. In which way? Ukrainians are stealing your cash. To do what? And then they present you with like a alternative of this view, a bunch of alternatives of this view, and you can just pick one you like. You just kind of fit into whichever position you like more than the other ones. So when it comes to like whether or not they see Ukrainians as equal to Russians or not, that's what it is, I think. They just kind of chunk all of these into the world, and you're going to find yourself in one of them. You're going to think one of them is what fits you. So yeah, fire hose of falsehood. Yeah, could be. It mentions Putin as the guy for it. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Oh yeah, the fire hose of falsehood is a contemporary model for Russian propaganda and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Yes, but basically that. It's like, I know that like usually I'm very, very salty about the Bucha massacre and the way it was being presented on social media when it just happened. But I think it's a great example of this, because that's what they were doing. It was like, oh, the massacre never happened. Oh, the massacre did happen, but Ukrainians did it. Oh, yeah, there were dead people on the street, but no one massacred them. They were killed by the shelling. Oh, it was actually Georgians who did it. It wasn't like Russians, no Ukrainians. It was just Georgian people coming in. So it's like all these conflicting theories, and they clash. They make no sense. They clash. But no one cares that they clash. The point isn't to make a story which fits nicely. The point is to give you millions of stories, and then you see millions of stories, and then among them you see some parts of the truth, and you're going to be like, well, can I trust this? Because I've read like 20 different theories today. This is just theory number 21. I'm not really sure if I can trust this. So that's what they do when, it's like, are Ukrainians the same race as us or not? That's what they're doing. If you think that they're not, if you think that genetically Ukrainians are different, they have conspiracies for that. They have a way to talk about that. If you think they are the same, though, they do have a way to incorporate that into the messaging. Whatever is the view that you are starting with is a view that they have a conspiracy to be supporting. So, fucking sucks, but yeah. Don't even try to refute counter-arguments. Yeah, that's true.
Peace and
fucking
saving
cowards.
lives. Oftentimes these people
Beat up
swear
all of them.
up and down that they are no friends of Putin, or that they condemn Russia's war, and that they're only supporting a negotiated peace for the sake of
It'll be
Ukrainian
easier for us to
lives.
come to an
One clue
agreement
that
than
is
with this
bullshit
gang of
is the
drug
fact that
addicts
you
and
will see
neo-Nazis,
few,
yeah.
if any, actual Ukrainians supporting these
Prigozhin
people
or
or
Putin,
attending
like,
their events. Now, there's a lot that can be said about this argument, but having seen it so many times over the past year, I developed a little litmus test to see whether or not you should take the person voicing it seriously. Basically, anyone stressing negotiations and peace needs to answer 2 questions. First, what do they want to negotiate? Be specific. Who gets what and why? And second, let's say you get this peace agreement.
What do you mean? What do you mean by standardization of propaganda? I mean that there's no propaganda lines that they all agree with. You follow 10 different Russian propagandists, they're gonna give you 10 different theories about certain events. There's no standard that they're pushing for. There's not a line of propaganda that they're all trying to build, because everyone has a different way that they are building the propaganda in order to appeal to as many people as possible. About on par with Stalin, he's a psychopath. Him coming to power in Russia would mean great danger for the West. Ah. Yeah, that too. I'm not sure how I see like but I guess it's getting like really into hypotheticals at that point, isn't it? Trying to figure out like which one of them you would see as like worse. He's also smart. That is true. That is true. He at least has IQ, which might make it easier to get rid of him right now, because you know he is smart and he knows that Russia lost this war. So it might make it easier to get rid of him right now, but it's probably going to make it harder to get rid of Russia overall. And I'm pretty sure that like he would be open to either invading another part that he has some reason to claim ownership to, or he would be up for... when I say Russian Serb campaigns would be really, really good. He would try to do the whole thing with like turning the Westerners against each other. What would happen if Russia loses the war? I don't know. Ukraine gets its borders protected, hopefully gets into NATO, hopefully gets into European Union. I guess that's kind of it. Maybe Russia gets Balkanized, maybe not, depending. I've seen some people claiming it will. I'm seeing some other people claiming that the demands of people are not strong enough, so I don't really know on that one. I don't think we should push for anything, though. I think we should allow the people of Russia to make their own decision. But I guess that's kind of it. Hopefully they get rid of Putin in a horrible way, but I don't really have too much trust in this, to be honest. I think he's going to be able to spin it around as victory anyways. No matter what happens, he's going to be able to spin it as a victory. We've already seen some of his propagandists basically spinning it as like, hey guys, did you know that Ukraine wanted to invade Russia? And by invading them first, we have stopped the Ukrainian invasion onto Russia. So there's already a propaganda point to play into this idea that Ukrainians are actually the villains in this situation. So, Russians don't forgive leaders who lose wars. I think that would... Well, I do think that might be true. The thing is, I don't believe Putin will not try to spin this around as winning the war anyways. Like already right now, fuck, I need to find the post. We had propagandists arguing that basically they're being like, hey guys, do we even need Kherson and Zaporizhia? Hey guys, do we even need this? Do we ever want these parts? Like, what are we getting from them? They're useless. Why do we even try to fight for them? You know? It's like you're losing these parts, but you are pretending that you wanted to get rid of them anyways, right? So something like that, I guess, would happen in Russia if it loses the war too. Now, defining the loss is an important thing. Yes. But I believe whatever happens, the leadership will try to spin it around as winning the war anyways, to keep the people still complicit. Are we talking Russia fails to accomplish its unstated pre-war goals? Its stated goals since the war started? Yeah, like what exactly is it? I think whichever one it happens, I'm pretty sure that they're going to very easily spin it around as a victory. Oh, shit, there's a message. PMC Wagner Commanders Council made a decision. The evil brought by the military leadership of the country must be stopped. They neglect the lives of soldiers. They forgot the word justice, and we will bring it back. Those who destroyed today are guys who destroyed tens of thousands of lives of Russian soldiers will be punished. I'm asking no one resist. Everyone who will try to resist, we will consider them a danger and destroy them immediately, including any checkpoints in our way and any aviation that we see above our heads. I'm asking everyone to remain calm, do not succumb to provocations, and remain in their houses. Ideally, those along our way do not go outside. After we finish what we started, we will return to the front line to protect our motherland. Presidential authority, government, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Rosgvardia, and other departments will continue operating as before. We will deal with those who destroy Russian soldiers, and we will return to the front line. What does he mean? What does he mean? Like, how does he think of, like, how? Who is the enemy he is referring to here in the first place? Military leadership of the country? So MOD specifically? But like, what? How do you plan to go and to march towards them and to destroy them and then to still have a front line you can return to? Does he think that he is going to be able to butcher around Ministry of Defense? To like go and, I don't know, start some fighting inside that, and that at the same time the special military operation is going to be going as it was supposed to? Wouldn't it be causing huge losses on the side of Russians if you go and attack their fucking government? I'm sure it would cause at least huge issues in the logistics. Good luck, though.
With Vladimir Putin. Explain why he will stick to this one when he's broken every other agreement made with Ukraine, including those going back to the 1990s. See, most people don't want to answer the first question directly, because if they do, they'll reveal their pro-Russian position, and they know that has social and political costs. As I've said before, these people always insist they're not pro-Russia, but that they're really concerned with other things like Ukrainian lives, government spending, or just peace in general. But whenever you read between the lines in their screeds about diplomacy and negotiations, you can't help but notice the implication that it's only Ukraine that must make all the concessions, while Russia isn't obligated to do anything more than get a ceasefire to reorganize its troops and consolidate its occupation. So they need to spell it out. Who gets what, who loses what, and then explain why that is good. And that brings us to the second question. After spelling out exactly what should be negotiated, the person should be able to explain why Russia will stick to this agreement, as well as what will happen if it goes and breaks a new one. Since 1991, Russia made numerous agreements with Ukraine in regards to its territorial integrity. The most famous of these agreements was the Budapest Memorandum of 1994. This is when the US pressured Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan into giving up their nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees on their borders. Russia was not only a signatory to this treaty, but also its main beneficiary, as it left these countries wide open to Russian military intervention at a time when Russia had already been involved in 2 military interventions in Moldova and Georgia, and had just become embroiled in a brutal war to suppress Chechen independence. Kinda contradicts that often told sob story about how the US humiliated and subjugated Russia during the 90s, doesn't it? But we'll come back to that. Apart from the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, Russia signed several bilateral agreements with Ukraine recognizing the 1991 borders. For example, you had the Russian-Ukrainian Friendship Treaty of 1997. Then, in 2003, there was the Tuzla Island incident, where Russia attempted to assert control over the Kerch Strait by encroaching on Ukrainian-held territory. This too was eventually resolved by a good agreement, which reaffirmed respect for
Twitter
each other's
account
borders
I would recommend
and preserved
to
both
be
countries'
following.
access to the Kerch Strait and Azov Sea. Russia would violate this not only in 2014, But they also violated the maritime side of the treaty in 2018.
Yeah,
when
I saw the
Ukrainian
MOD
vessels
hitting
transiting
Wagner.
the Kerch Strait. After having broke these
I'm
agreements in
trying not to be too
2014, Russia
hopeful.
proceeded
It
to
is
break
Russians.
the first Minsk agreement, which led to
Look, if you go, you know what's my thing. If you go back to news about Ukraine, dating, I want to say March last year, March 2022. You know what happened in March 2022? One of those clips of Russian state TV, which got viral. I don't remember which one it was. I remember the pointed dude speaking in it. But basically, he talks about how Russians are not going to be successful in this war on Ukraine. And what was happening with this clip was being shared around was a lot of people were commenting like, oh, is this finally the fall of Russia? Oh, are Russian people finally waking up? Oh, look at this propagandist. If he is saying this, then the majority of Russian society must be thinking this. Are we finally going to see Russia crumble? And you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened on any scale. Nothing of value. So at this point, until I see Russia go down in flames, I'm not believing it will go down in flames. I am coming strongly from the position of like, this is going to disappoint you. Everything having to do with Russia is going to disappoint you until proven otherwise. Anything. Any single little bit of hope you have, crush it right now. It's the fastest way to kind of predict what's happening. Just crush every single hopeful expectations you have. So what I'm expecting happens is Prigozhin forgets about this. In the very much same way he forgot about his threats to pull out of Bakhmut. He's going to be angry now, and then tomorrow he's going to wake up in the morning and be like, well, everything is normal. Let me go call my friends in Ministry of Defense and chat with them a little bit, and that's it. That's it. So,
the second Minsk agreement,
never
which Russia
allow yourself
actually
to have
broke from the
hopes
first
in
moment
Russia.
it was set to go into effect. See, the first point on Minsk II was a full ceasefire. At the time this was supposed to go into effect, Russia continued fighting so as to capture the town of Debaltseve. From then on, Russian forces occupying part of Donbass would continue to violate this first point, among several others, for years. And besides that, let's remember that Minsk II was a deal essentially forced at gunpoint, unlike previous bilateral multilateral treaties signed between Russia and Ukraine. So if you want another peace treaty, you need to explain why Putin is going to stick to this one after breaking literally
My level of
every
trust
previous
is
agreement.
0.
But what is more, you need to explain what happens
My level
if
of
Putin
trust
should
in
break
Russian
this
army
next agreement.
having the
See,
brain
same
to
people
stop
screaming
following
about
orders of the
need for
government is 0.
diplomacy and peace tend not to be too keen on things like sanctions and especially military intervention.
Like until I see it in
So
action.
suppose Putin breaks this new hypothetical treaty. Are we supposed to believe that peaceniks and diplomacy fans like Code Pink or the Quincy Institute would ever suggest Putin face real consequences if he dares break this new agreement? Of course not. First, they're going to inevitably blame NATO and the West for breaking the new peace agreement and forcing Russia to continue the war. Then they'll claim that sanctions don't work and we mustn't risk World War III, thus we need to negotiate away more Ukrainian territory for the sake of peace. And here's the thing, you'll never hear these people specifically answer these questions because they're consciously acting in bad faith. They certainly do not care about Ukrainian lives, which is why you never see any actual Ukrainians at their events or on their speaking panels. If they answer the first question, then they need to admit they want Ukraine to give up its land, which means giving up the people who live on that land. Knowing what we've long known about Ukrainians living under Russian occupation, this is unacceptable to anybody but complete psychopaths. Apart from abandoning hundreds of thousands of people to occupation by a fascist dictatorship that openly hates them, many more people from these regions will be unable to return home. If we assume these ghouls only want Ukraine to concede the territories Russia has currently claimed, then they leave what's left of Ukraine largely economically hobbled, which is one of the actual strategic goals of the Kremlin. They won't answer the second question because these people know that they don't support any kind of punitive action against Russia, and therefore they'd never support any kind of agreement backed by any sort of intervention or consequences for Russia's noncompliance. In reality, no peace treaty with Russia is worth the paper it's printed on. Since last September, Russia has desperately needed a general ceasefire to
Great news for
reorganize
Ukraine,
and regroup
absolutely.
its tattered forces,
Don't get your
which
hopes
is why
too up.
all its shills in the
Too
West
high?
have been calling for
Too
one
high.
since then. They even
Chill.
went to the embarrassing length of calling for a short Christmas truce like this is the First World War or something.
Yeah, that.
Since Russia failed to get this truce, it's been forced to just steam on it.
Bro, the fucking Christmas truce thing though. I piss on everyone who demanded that. Like, you've got one side trying to genocide the other, and you're calling for a fucking Christmas truce. The reason why Christmas truce worked in World War I was because it was a war of sides just wanting fucking power. World War I was a perfect example of a war where you could say, oh, well, why can't the leaders of these countries just go and battle it out instead of sending the soldiers there to die? Yes, in World War I that would work. You know where it wouldn't work? In World War II. You know which war had no truce? World War II. They tried to have it in parts. It failed. Because people were ideologically opposed to each other. Just what a sort of a stupid person would look at the current Russian invasion on Ukraine and be like, hey guys, can't you just have a truce? Can't you like share some cookies with each other or something? Shut the fuck up. Anti-Putin protests from the point of view that he is not fascist and not anti-Ukraine enough to satisfy Russian people. You're talking about Girkin and his angry Patriots Club. That is unironically, I do think that might be a very strong force in the future. Angry Patriots Club are basically people who organized to meet together and to be bitching about how unsuccessful this war is. So they're not bitching against the current Russian leadership because they dislike their imperialism. They are bitching about them because they are doing imperialism in very ineffective ways and losing them this war.
Head, leading to several failed winter offenses, and of course,
oh yeah,
Bakhmut
it's like doing a
has been
Christmas
nothing but a slog,
truce with
costing
Nazis.
them tens of thousands of casualties.
You know, it's like, hey, these people want to
capture a
genocide me.
relatively small town. A peace
Let's
treaty or
go
ceasefire
celebrate
that lets
Christmas
them
with
keep
them?
any
No.
of their gains would be a perfect opportunity to reorganize and rearm, and then launch the war at a later date at Putin's convenience. We know this because this is what he did with Minsk II. But more importantly, we know exactly what rationale Putin would use to restart the war. Keep in mind that Russia has formally claimed several more Ukrainian oblasts, none of which
Are you
they
trying to
control
listen to
completely.
this
In
stream
Kherson,
and
for example,
Thompson?
Ukrainian forces hold the city of Kherson, the
Because I'm
oblast
thinking
capital.
about how bad I
Assuming
feel
the
streaming at
just
this time,
negotiate
because like
crowd
Thompson is
fine
streaming,
with
and I
freezing
don't
the
want to be
line where
streaming
it
at the
is,
same time he
Russia will
streams.
simply claim that its territory is occupied by Ukraine, and Russian law compels
You
the
can't
president
negotiate
to
with a
retake
line
that
with your head in
territory.
its mouth.
And
Yeah,
if the
true.
negotiation
Yeah, I'm actually
standpoint
unironically, I'm
actually
thinking about
insists
like
that
ending the
Ukraine should
stream
just
soon, but also
leave
we're
all
having
these
like a
territories
storm
and
outside. I'm
abandon them to
hearing it.
Russia, not only would this still not
But
guarantee
I don't
future
want to be
peace,
streaming at
but
the
they'd
same
just
time
be
Thompson
openly
streams.
admitting
I
that
want him to
countries
kind of
should
be like the
rewarded for
only
their military aggression, which is again a major reason why you
person
rarely see
in
these
politics,
people getting
so
specific
he would get
about
all
what
the
they
views.
want.
I love that
Folks,
man.
we've done this before. The
Windy as fuck there
1938
too.
Munich Agreement
Shit.
over the fate of Sudetenland
Did you have
is
like
the classic
thunderstorm or
lesson
something?
about the failure of appeasement. Like Vladimir Putin, Adolf
Yeah, I got
Hitler
words in
claimed to be
YouTube. I got words in
concerned about
YouTube.
the fate of ethnic Germans in neighboring countries.
Unless
And
you are
many
Russian,
people
because if
deluded
you are Russian, you
themselves
don't have
into
them.
thinking that if you could just get those territories,
Sex to be you,
you'd
I guess,
satisfied
for
and not
multiple
push
reasons.
further.
That
Those
one
people
included.
were indisputably proven wrong. Putin's real goals in Ukraine are
Nah,
conquest
Thompson
of
is
most
based.
of the
Thompson is
country,
based.
leaving only a small,
We're gonna
impoverished
do
Slav state.
multi-streams.
This is
You know
not
what we're
some-
gonna do, me and Thompson? You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do streams like Arestovich does. That's what we're gonna do, okay? Thompson is going to be Arestovich because he's Ukrainian and because he likes him and because he's kind of calm. So Thompson's gonna do that part, and I'm gonna do the part of the war criminal. So I feel like we're gonna be a great match. I feel like you could actually do that. 1 or 2 banks? Shit. That means I should actually be ending the stream relatively soonish because my internet is going to go out. My internet is going to die. I was kind of scared of this because we saw it on the news that like a storm is supposed to come, and we were like, yeah, it's gonna be chill, but I can hear it through my headphones and with a relatively loud fan in my room, so I'm like there's a sun out. Hey, by the way, I did a thing, guys. I haven't even told you about it. Okay, wait, we're gonna end the stream soon. I love storms too. I just don't love the fact that I lose internet, and then the stream is just gonna end, and you're gonna be left at me being like, and that's that. So, what did I want to say? I forgot what I wanted to say. You know what I was doing today? You know why the stream was late? Shut the fuck up. The stream was late because I was trying to fix the situation here with the sunlight getting into my room. So right now what happened is basically I have one of those, you know, like diagonal roof windows, which are like how do I call this? Roof window. Let me see if it shows the type. These ones suck. Never get one of these. Okay, trust me. Get one of these instead if you can. I'm actually planning to switch this one to this one, because like I should be getting paychecks relatively soonish for my 600 days of work. So I'm kind of hoping to be able to switch. This one sucks. It lets in a lot of sun, and it also lets in a lot of heat. And also there's no way to kind of like protect against it properly. I've tried buying several of those like little sheet bullshit that you put on it. It does nothing. It still like heats everything up. It genuinely does nothing. So what I did today is I did a DIY fixing of this, which is basically you see like this like inside part of the window. So like there's a glass pane and then there's wood right around it. Right now in that part of the window there's this thick piece of styropor just chunked into it. It's like 5 centimeters too big to fit in it, and I pushed it into it anyways. The pressure on this fucking window right now is unimaginable. If this thing bursts during the night while I'm sleeping, it's gonna kill me. But the room is noticeably much colder than what it used to be, and I'm so happy about that. So yeah, board it all up like a zombie apocalypse, basically. 5 centimeters too big to fit. I said it already, and then I was like, someone's gonna write a naughty joke. Someone's gonna write a little naughty thing in chat because of this. I see you losers there in Topson's chat, by the way. I see you losers there. I see you. Of course it's gonna be you. Who else? Wait, I actually have to like take care of the storm. I'm kind of worried. Last time we had it, we usually have a thing. Someone, by the way, mocked me up there. Who was it? Was it you again? It was you. You guys have internet in your village? Look, first of all, we have really good internet. Okay, we have really good internet. Our internet is amazing, but it's even better than internet in some other villages. Not even villages, but like small towns. Because I have some friends in town parts who wanted to start streaming, and they couldn't because their internet is so shit. And I actually have strong internet here. We do pay a little bit extra for it, but we have strong internet here. So, but also usually we lose internet. You know how it said in Croatian, like you lose electricity when a frog pisses outside? That's how it goes here. So it's kind of weird. I'm still around, to be honest. You see the spam in chat? Okay, guys, we're going. Okay. I see the hint. I understand the hint. We're going. Color TV, bitch. We had those since at least last year. Of course, we're up for new tech. I was actually I was at work today, and our thing broke. The thing for like credit cards, it broke, and the dude who came to fix the thing for credit cards, he was like, like, wow, you guys accept credit cards here in the village? Damn, that's kind of fancy for you, isn't it? And I was like, bro, little bitch. AC, I have no AC. I don't have AC. I got sadness and pain, and that's the whole thing. That's everything that I've got available at work. Not even proper that. It works in like half the store, so I guess that's okay. If you go to some parts, you're actually like, and then you take few steps in the front and you're like, so you know. How many people? Like 200. We got around 200 people. Should probably invest in AC. I was thinking about it, but it's very, very expensive, and also there's no proper workers around, and also raid in like 8 seconds. Guys, see you next week. Enjoy your weekend. Let's go watch Thompson.